If you're law enforcement, stop and listen to me right now. If you're a police department that does not have an LPR system, Insight is offering the first 10 agencies, that means one agency apiece, gets one camera for free. You have to tell them that Two Cops, One Donut sent you. You heard me right. If you're a police agency that does not have an LPR system yet, or does have an LPR system, and you're not happy with the product you have, Insight is offering you a free camera. No strings attached, and they will install it. I have 10 to give out. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you, or reach out to me, and I will get you in contact. If you're a business owner or an HOA, please stop and listen to me right now. If you're just listening to the audio, do yourself a favor and watch the YouTube version of this episode to get a visual of what I'm about to tell you. I want to tell you guys about Insight LPR. It's a license plate reader. If your agency, community, or business is looking to invest in LPR to help solve and deter crime or to make your community safer, Insight LPR has my vote of confidence. I've met with their team. They know their LPRs, guys. They're the real deal. They bring over 75 years of collective experience to building LPR cameras and the software that supports communities across the country. The other thing I really like about this team is how much they listen to law enforcement. They understand the importance of working together with law enforcement and getting their input as they build and innovate products and their service to match the needs of law enforcement. In other words, when I complain or have suggestions to make their damn camera better, they actually do it. The Insight LPR team is extremely passionate and takes pride in their product development, which makes their cameras some of the most durable cameras in the market. For the gear nerds out there, what that means is this stuff's made of military grade aluminum and is nitrogen purged, whatever that means. This design makes the cameras rugged and able to withstand harsh weather elements. Here's the big selling point for me. Their nighttime scan accuracy is higher than most of the leading competitors. In my opinion, this is what sets them apart. As we know, the majority of crimes occur at night, so it's critical to have high scan accuracy at night. Insight's cameras check the box with the nighttime plate read accuracy greater than 96%. 96%, guys. That's pretty freaking high. If your community is looking to invest in LPR technology, reach out to one of their experts today or reach out to me. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you. Coming up next on Two Cops, One Donut.
And I had a convertible at the time. And when I first went through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel and the top was down, if I started feeling hail coming down, and I looked on my seat, and there were little white specks all over my seat. And when I looked, and I saw all the emergency services responded back, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and I saw smoke coming out of the World Trade Center, and realized that was part of the plane that has landed on my seat, like micro fragments of the plane. And so,
wow,
immediately whipped a U-turn and ran back. And from that moment on, like, I was entrenched in it all. So.
All right, welcome back. Two Cops, One Donut. I'm your host, Eric Levine, and today I got me a former NYPD, former Port Authority, all the cop things out there in the big Northeast, John Verdi. Or is it Verdi? How do you pronounce it, sir?
Verdi, with my horrible Brooklyn accent.
The accent's cool, though, man. When people
Thanks.
think cops, like, one of the things, it's either that thick Brooklyn, New York accent, you know, from... what's that? NYPD Blue, or man, I'm dating myself, ain't I? I don't even think that show's been on in forever. What's the new Blue Bloods? That's the new one. And yeah, you either think that or you think like Walker Texas Ranger country style. Like maybe that's just because I'm down here in Texas. We love our Cowboys down here, man.
Absolutely.
I'm a fake. I'm a poser, but I play the role well.
Why is there not a 10-gallon hat and some boots in that studio? What's going on there?
No. This is the embodiment of me. This is my personality in here. So don't get me wrong. I have the cowboy hat and the boots. They're in the closet, but yeah, I've got all that. It's just there's no room in here, and
I hear you.
It's not nearly as cool as having Star Wars helmets.
Seriously, and C-3PO has to stay like that. So
yes,
that's pretty dope. Yeah,
yeah,
man,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a fire picture you got.
Yeah, well, that's so those are hand painted. It's the covers of the first 3 Star Wars. but
Really?
technically the third, fourth, and fifth. But yeah, they're hand painted, and the other one you can't see it; it's on this wall. But yeah, it's one of my family members gave it to me, and so I just keep them up in the inside. But yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what the covers look like on the movies. So
Very cool.
so brother, how are things over there in Florida? I know you're over there in Melbourne. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm now retired. Living the life in paradise, otherwise known as Melbourne, Florida. I am since retiring. I started a school for kids, a not-for-profit school for kids, and keeping busy by also starting a not-for-profit that facilitates meaningful connection between police officers in the community.
Very cool.
So I have my to say my day is full is an understatement.
All right, so part of this podcast, and for those listening, we're going to be talking about I like my podcasts tend to go a long time, so I like people to know kind of like what to expect. So if they're like, that doesn't interest me, I'm going to turn this one off or whatever. So what to expect, obviously, first we're going to get his background, what led him into a life of service, but primarily we're going to get into his nonprofit and the things that sparked the idea for helping bridge gaps with the community and stuff. John, this is what drew me and John together, is we both kind of have a similar path in life, I guess you could say, when it comes to using law enforcement. So that's what we're going to get into today. I hope you guys stay tuned and listen. But as we get going here, John, I would love to know, like, did you have cops in the family up in New York? What brought you to what's considered, the finest police department in the nation, NYPD?
well, my old man, he was cop near NYPD, very highly decorated officer, um, always revered as a cop's cop. I mean, really, like he embodied what it was to be a New York City police officer in the 70s, 80s, into the 90s. Um, and I got to be honest with you, like a lot of the things that he did, like the accolades, they were super cool growing up, like having your dad come to school and teach kids about not doing drugs and stuff like that and doing the whole this is my handcuffs kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
That was cool. And a lot of everybody knowing that my dad was a cop, everybody kind of left me alone. You know what I'm saying? That also helped too. But I think a lot of people can, share in this sentiment when you grow up in a cop family. You have to deal with the cop issues, right?
Right.
And those cop issues of, hey, dad hasn't been home for 3 days straight because he's making collars, or he's doing surveillance on somebody or something like that, or you know, dad, has his different ways to cope with his PTSD, or, dad, just, don't go near dad. He's super moody today, all that kind of stuff. Like it being entrenched in that, um, it was super tough. It was absolutely. And it ultimately brought my family to divorce, my mother and my father to divorce, sadly. Um, but I became an officer um, because I wanted to learn from my old man, right? Like everybody says when you have a child, hey, I want them to learn from my mistakes, right? And I want them to be better than what I was. That's what my father would say to me all the time. And so I would sit there and I would try to talk to him and try to understand like what was going on, and how do I not make the same mistakes he does as I enter into the same field that he went into. So I graduated from St. John's University and then decided to go into the NYPD, um, and started my career in the same place that my father started his career, which is the 60 precinct in Coney Island.
Did you get his
So
badge by chance? I heard that's a thing in New York.
it is a thing. I tried, and the person that had it refused to give it up at the time.
Dang, that's a dick move.
Well, you know what? So, like I said, my dad, his shield, like, and what he accomplished under that shield. Like the guy was just like, "Hey man, this shield has also brought me a lot of luck."
Ah,
And I said to him, "You know what, bro? That's fine.
yeah.
That's fine." And
Cops
and
are,
it, and I got to be honest with you, part of me wanted to blaze my own path. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like my, I just looked at it as, okay, that's him. That's how he did things. And now I want to see how I can learn from that and just be my own
It's
cop.
funny
So,
how similar our stories are because my dad is at the department, or was, he retired. But I I could have came down to his department like as soon as I was old enough to be a cop. But I didn't. Same thing. High. I mean, he earned the highest award that that department has, basically the Medal of Valor for the police department, because he was in a knockdown drag out where he's fighting over his weapon type thing. Had to take out a suspect, but so here I am trying to make my own name, and I was like, I'm not going down to that department and being, Freddie Gilbert's little kid. Like, I wanted to do my own thing, and uh, slightly different. My parents never divorced. They just never got married. I was an accident. So, um, yeah, they dated hot and heavy for like little less than a year, maybe a year, and they broke up. My dad moved down to Texas. Like a couple months later, my mom realized she was pregnant. So they're like, "Whoops!" So, uh, they tried to make it work. They just weren't compatible people. So no love loss on that, and they were always cool to each other. But yeah, the culture of policing, you come down, and the thing that our parents didn't have is the wherewithal. Like that was just policing. Like that was the thing that was accepted. There wasn't really any mental health um knowledge out there. So me growing up and you growing up, like we had to learn from them, and either we accepted, well, that's just how it is, that's the lifestyle, to what you accept, or we had to
mhm.
figure out a way to change it. And I've worked extremely hard in a career being both military and police where the divorce rate's super high. My wife, both her parents have been married and divorced 3 times. um, and then me never having my own parents together. So when we got together, we'd been together since about 7th grade, and same grade growing up and all that. But we didn't even get married till we were 23 because we both wanted to make sure like this is it, and we
Yeah.
aren't doing what they do. And I basically just followed the opposite of what I saw most cops do. I said, okay, these guys, they only hang out with each other. So most of my friends are non-cops. They only, they get together and it's just nonstop war stories and all that stuff. I'm like, I get it. I love police work. I just don't want it to be my entire life. Like, let me do shit when I get home. So I really fought hard, and it's the formula's been working for me. I tell my wife everything, everything. I don't hold any of the stories that bother me back. I ask her, "Do you want all the details? Do you want me to just tell you the nuts and bolts of it?" And she's like, "No, tell me everything. Why is it bothering you?" So the dead baby calls, the accidents, all that stuff. She hears it all. She helps me bear that burden, and we talk about that stuff. So, um,
And
it's
listen,
it's one of those things, man. Like you and I hear what you're saying, and we just kind of had to blaze our own path and change our way that we see policing. And I think from what I'm seeing, what you're doing, man, I love it, man.
thank you. Thank you. When it comes to spouse and learning and all that kind of stuff, I mean, my wife is my ride or die. When I would come home, she would definitely like, I would have to download, the best that I can onto her. Obviously, there was some things that I had to leave out, but for
Yeah,
the most part, it's like, I said to her, if you're gonna ride with me, then you're gonna get the full ride. Like, you have to understand where I'm coming from because there's gonna be times where you want to do something, and I'm like, no, I got too much in my head right now. I have so much that I just experienced, and you got to give me that time to be able to step back. And
yeah,
she did, and even to this day, I'm married. I'm with my wife 23 years. So
hell yeah,
like, my father, him and my mom hung on for 20 years. So I'm happy that I passed them. You know what I'm saying? But that was the benchmark. But
yeah,
just my father never did that with my mother. My father always came home and said, mind your business, don't worry about it. But with that, it was always, when you do that, I think we've learned that the more that you do that, the more questions come after that, and the more mistrust comes after that. There's only so much that somebody can just trust you that you can handle everything. So, and for your listeners now that are at home, some people be like, that's crap or whatever it is. Hey, man, I hear you. Everybody has their own situation. Like us right now, I can only tell you what has worked for me, and you're expressing what's worked for you. But I can say, like, to have that outlet that's not another cop, that's somebody that knows you that well, it really is a like solidifying force. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'm so thankful to have found my wife.
Yeah. I got married to
And
have a partner, not to have somebody that is there just, when it's convenient for me.
right.
Like that's the way I like, and I've had people like, dude, you can't tell your wife some of this stuff. Like that's not fair to her. I'm like, she she knew what she signed up for. Like,
Yeah.
like it's not.
Yeah.
She's a grown ass woman. She knows. And I ask her, hey, you want me to tell you? She knows. The nights you come home and you wake your kids up just to hug them, like she's like, you want to
Yeah.
talk about it in the morning? You want to talk about it now? And I'm like, we'll just do it in the morning. Let me go to
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, she knows. She knows. But
Absolutely.
that's why the divorce rate's so high, because you guys don't
Yeah.
have these conversations before you get married. You got to
Right.
you got they get, and it's, I don't think it's the spouse's fault necessarily, because people get enamored by the that aura of being a first responder. They see the uniform, and they start dating, they're in love with the fact that their person that they're with is a hero, so to speak. And uh before you know it, like, wedding bells start going off, and you never really had that conversation or showed them the real life of it. So
I actually for the first 4 months that I was talking with my wife, I refused to tell her what I did for a living. And I kept saying, like, you're gonna have to figure it out. And it also helped at the time that I was an undercover in the NYPD at that time, so
you didn't
I
even
was
look
able
like a
to.
cop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she didn't figure out until I told her, and it was she couldn't believe it. And I said, that was the time when I said, like, now's the time to walk away. If there's something about what I do that you don't like, we can talk about it. And trust me when I tell you, there's been a lot of those conversations between my wife and I. When it comes to being a police officer, when it comes to the difference in how we grew up, because my wife is a woman of color. So, like, to sit there and work through those differences, especially coming from a old school Italian household,
Oh yeah.
when I walked my girlfriend of color into my house and introduced to my mother, and the ladle went flying out of the macaroni, saying, "What? Who is this? This
Right.
is your girlfriend? Yeah, ma, this is my girlfriend." And you know,
A true
to
Bronx tale.
oh yeah, absolutely. I kid you not when I say that, like, my mother, they could not believe that I had brought home a woman of color, and literally, like, when my wife walked onto the block that I lived on, people were coming up to me saying, "Hey, there's a woman of color on the block. You know
Yeah.
where she's going?" Yeah,
Yeah.
she's coming to my house. Yeah. So,
Are you
so
lost, ma'am?
we have literally, my wife and I have literally had those deep, discussions about what it is to be who we are
Oh man, I could
and where
only
we came
imagine
from.
the family reunions on her side.
Yeah. So,
Not only did you marry a white boy, you married a fucking cop? Really?
oh yeah, her mom and her family, they were not happy. They were
Oh
not happy at
shit.
all. And it was actually it's actually pretty crazy because my wife's mother is a medium. You know what I
Okay.
mean by a
Yeah,
medium?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
and so when I first met her, she decided that she wanted to read my tarot cards.
Oh.
And when she busted them out and she started reading them, sitting there next to my wife, and she's like, like, literally everything that she said came true. Everything she said, you're gonna, you one day you're gonna marry my daughter. and we're not going to speak anymore, and you're going to have two kids, and you're going to
What?
do this and you're going to do that. And we were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And every single part of it came true. Every
So
part
she
of it.
doesn't talk to y'all no more?
No, she does
Oh
not.
shit.
No. Yeah. So
Dang.
yeah, but it has nothing to do with me being a white cop. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
things that have
I was
happened.
like,
Yeah.
that's some. I
No,
was
no.
like, dang,
It's
she
just
really put her foot down on that.
yeah, yeah, no. Just the circumstances that we went through. Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay, okay.
yeah.
All right. So
So
I'm getting the whole picture here. You cops in the blood. You
yes,
know, you
deep.
yeah, so you went out, you did your thing. Now, were you a cop during 9/11?
I was, yes. So
Okay.
so the cool thing about that was on 9/11, I was an undercover for the NYPD. I probably had the coolest job a guy could possibly have as an undercover for the NYPD, and that I was on the undercover prostitution
Okay.
team. You know,
Yeah.
so
You were selling yourself.
yeah, I
You were the
wish.
prostitute, right?
I wish. And that morning we had just so imagine being on that team, and also, I was in Vice, so we would do prostitution, we would do gambling, all that kind of, all that Vice related stuff, and then so we were doing about anywhere from 10 to 20 bodies a night, you know,
Wow.
and then on that particular day, we had made a whole bunch of arrests the night before. So I had just finished up doing like processing all the arrests and bringing everybody downtown and all that kind of stuff. And I was actually heading back down um, through Manhattan. I took the FDR Drive into the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, and I had a convertible at the time. And um, when I first went through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel and the top was down, um, if I started feeling hail coming down, and I looked on my seat, and there were little white specks all over my seat. And when I looked and I saw all the emergency services responded back, and I looked in my rearview mirror and I saw smoke coming out of the World Trade Center, and realized that was part of the plane that was landing that has landed on my seat, like
Oh,
micro fragments of the plane. And so
wow.
immediately whipped a U-turn and ran back. And from that moment on, like, I was entrenched in it all. So
Dang.
yeah. So and at one point, um, amidst the chaos and the buildings falling and all that kind of stuff, I was stuck underneath a car, and I had I didn't think that I was gonna live. I'm gonna be honest with you. I thought that was it.
Was that why the building was coming down?
This was this is the second building that came down.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm underneath a car. Building comes down. The rush comes past, and I said, "I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna get squid. I'm gonna get crushed. I'm gonna die here." And I prayed to the Lord above, and I said, "If you let me survive this, I promise you with all my heart that I will do something greater than myself. Just please let me survive this."
Jeez.
And everything rushed through. And most people don't know that actually three buildings fell that day. So
Yes.
there, right? So when I
Was
came
it
out of the second one, that was Building 7. It's
7?
called.
Right. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say I think they called it Building 7.
yeah. So they have. So once I came out of that underneath the car, then Building 7 then came rushing, rushing later, and that was another come to Jesus moment. But um, it was just so apocalyptic. It was just so surreal. And when people ask me all the time, like, what was it like? Um, think of going like after a nor'easter. I know you don't have nor'easters in
I
Texas.
no, well, I grew up in Michigan, so I know
All
exactly
right.
what you're talking about. Yeah, or
So
Alberta
if
Clippers or whatever you want to call them. Yep.
right, so if you hit the block, like right after a heavy, heavy snowstorm, and you're the first one on the block, and you just hear, like, you can't see much,
Right.
and you just see the humming of the street lights,
Yep.
right? And you just like, this is so eerie.
It's soft, dead noise. It's hard to
Yes.
explain. Yeah.
So think of that. And but everything is gray. And then it was like that for a very short while, and then it was just chaos.
Oh,
It was
geez.
just every blaring horn and whatever you could possibly think of, and people screaming, and it was just crazy. And but like I said in the Stand Together piece, I have to like be honest with you. My brain, something happened, right? And my brain started like defaulting to different things, I guess, as like a coping mechanism, right? And I started to look for the positives that were happening at the time. I know that sounds strange. I know
That doesn't
as I'm
sound
sitting
strange
there,
to me. That's my
as
life.
I'm yeah, I mean, as I'm running around and trying to help people, and then like I'm looking around and I'm seeing that it's not just me helping, right? Like I'm running up to ordinary people and asking them if they need my help. And they're saying to me, no, 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 no. Let's go back in. Let's find more people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bet, let's go, you know? And there was firemen, there was police officers, there was EMTs, but there were also ordinary people that were like ripped to shreds, bloodied up. And they're like, yeah, yeah, we got to find more people. We got to find more people. And those were all different people of color,
Yeah.
you know, like it was white, black, different religions. It was just, yo, we got to look for survivors,
Yeah.
you know? And so it just, that part, at the time, I was like, wow, that was so awesome that that person helped and this and that. But you don't, you know, you're going through it. So like my brain is defaulting and it's picking up these little things, but it's not really realizing how incredibly awesome that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I didn't I didn't really start to get a sight picture of it, right? Until I was working on the pile trying to look for survivors. And we were over a day in. My feet had actually caught fire because being on top of the pile, it was so hot that the rubber soles actually melted off and actually
Oh,
caught fire.
wow.
And so I ran off and grabbed some BS boots that they had, right? And
Yeah.
like, but even like even before that, like everything, my feet are on fire. It's super hot. They're like, and at the time, because I was undercover, I didn't have like my issue boots on.
Yeah.
I was wearing Doc Martens at the time, right? So like
Okay.
they were like Doc Martens down to the nubs. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah.
Like, and
The doc
I
will
just,
replace it though.
well,
Yeah.
you know what? Those things are, those were zip bagged and sent. I actually held on to them for a long time, as a remembrance of like that entire day, and then eventually I mustered up enough courage to get rid of it. But um, I turned to my right, and there's a, you know, you hear all these sirens going off, and there's sirens going off at my feet, and I'm like, man, what the hell is that noise? Like I said to the cop next to me, what the hell is that noise? And he's like, bro, like look where we are. That has to be like an alarm, like a store alarm or something like that, right? And I'm like, oh man, it's just so, it's right here. It's right here. And I keep trying to grab at it, and everything that around it is super hot, you know?
Yeah.
And I can't get to it. I'm just like, I'm flipping out. And I wind up realizing that it's not a store alarm. I start realizing that it's the alarm that goes off on the Scott packs for the firefighters.
Oh, when they lay down.
And I just couldn't get to it. And I called the guy, you know, I'm calling all these people over. I'm like, yo, there's an alarm right here. Like, and everybody's trying to grab on and grab wedges to try to like bring stuff over. We just couldn't. It was just so smoldering hot. And just
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And that's something that, I know I said I like to default to the positives, but that's the one true like negative that haunts me every single night.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a really really tough one.
Yeah.
And but to come out of that, right? Because this is not a doom and gloom podcast,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah. I, after being on the pile for a while, and I just got so exhausted and just so mentally done. They had like a makeshift sleep area in the movie theater across the street. Um, so the cop that was standing next to me, he's like, "Bro, you don't look good. Like, you go grab 15 minutes, go grab a nap, bro." And I hadn't slept in like 2 days, 3 days, and I was like, "All right." And I walk into this room, and it's like everything is blacked out. It's just quiet, right? And you walk in, and all of a sudden, I look to my left, and I hear, "Hey, officer." And I didn't think he was talking to me. I just kept walking. He's like, "Oh, hey, officer. Hey, officer." And I turned to the left, and there's a man standing there. It was a dark skinned man, and he's just like, "Hey, officer, come here, come here." And I said, "What's the matter, sir?" And he's like, "Man, you look like you need a hug." And I said, "What?" He's like, "You look like you need a hug." I was like, "Yeah, I probably do." And he's like, "Well, come here." I'm like, "Hell no." He's like, "What?" He's like, "I want to give you a hug." I'm like, "I'm not letting you hug me. Look at this crap I got all over me. Are you nuts? I don't know what this stuff is." And he said, "I don't care." He said, "Come over here, man." And he gave me a huge hug. And he's like, "Listen, bro." He's like, "What you guys are doing out there is absolutely amazing. And you guys are heroes and this and that, blah, blah, blah." And I'm just looking, I'm literally like, my eyes are spinning. And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
I said, "What are you doing here? Get out of here. Like, this whole everything here is contaminated and this and that." And he's like, "Nah, man, you guys got to understand. We really do appreciate you." And I'm like, and he goes, "Here." And he hands me a card from a third grader from Buffalo, New York, that says, it says, "We're so proud of you. You guys are heroes, this and that." And I looked at this guy and I looked at him, and I was like, "Man, thank you for that. You have no idea what that just did to me." And I took that card, I put it into my jacket pocket, and I walked right back out. I
Yeah.
never took that nap. I never sat there, and I went and I did my best to recover, to get.
Yeah.
I had that invigorated me to find survivors, more survivors, to sit there. And that it actually turns out that card, I still have it to this day. I actually sent a letter back to that young girl, letting her know how much I appreciated it, because I think that's also super important, right?
Yeah.
When somebody does something nice, that you let them know how it affected you in a positive way.
She's probably an adult now, right?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like, I wouldn't even, how about this? I looked into trying to contact the girl. And so I went to contact the school, and the school's actually closed down. Like, that's,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, but ultimately, like, it's, it's stuff like that, when ultimately I had time later on in my career to reflect on those times, that has brought me to do what I do now. Because
so
I feel that every single officer out there should feel the way that I did when I received that card.
right. And hey folks, Eric Levine from Two Cops, One Donut. Want something better than Ring, Arlo, Brink, or any of the other quick launch home security systems? I've been having trouble with my Ring products. They don't read license plates on moving vehicles, the link doesn't connect fast enough to my phone, and I'm tired of getting notifications only to see like a glimpse of something that set it off. I was reached by a veteran-owned business called Agent Security. The owner, the staff, all veterans or former cops. They're kind of like the Chick-fil-A of customer service when it comes to security. They have a system that does everything companies like Ring do and more. They have pivoting cameras that track day or night. They can also read license plates and catch high definition details that will lead police more effectively to catching the offender. Their mission is providing the best home security systems to their customers. All you have to do is start the conversation to protect our most valuable assets, our families. They listen to your needs and come up with perfect customized security solutions to protect what matters to you most. You can contact them by phone at 713-962-3558 or email info@agentsecurity.com or visit their website, agentsecurity.com. That's AGENTSECURITY.com. They serve the greater Houston area, North Texas, and more. Be sure to tell them that Eric Levine from Two Cops, One Donut sent you. Let's talk about that for a second, because
Yeah.
we know how some cops are. Have you ever been around the cop that somebody comes up and did something nice for? They made cookies or whatever, and they're real nice to their face. And as soon as that person walks away, they're like, "I ain't fucking eating these. It's probably got LSD in them or whatever the hell it is." And then what does that do to the culture of policing to everybody around you? It's that
So
negative pass off, and
yeah.
that affects everybody. And I'm just like, I refuse to be that person. I'm not going to do that. So kind of like what you did, you have to let them know. And I agree with you on that. Like it's one thing to, thank you, acknowledge, but whatever. But the follow-up is, I think, the more important part,
Yes.
because at the moment they're just like, it's just like the call for being a first responder. Like it's that moment of helping. So they believe that they're helping when they tell the police officer, thank you, they made the card or whatever. But I don't think it ever fully really hits home until that follow-up happens. And then when that
Right.
follow-up comes through, then it becomes the relationship starts right there.
Correct.
So that's my impression of it. But
I
with
agree.
policing, we constantly, are cynical
Pushing
or
away.
negative. Yeah, we push that stuff away instead of just taking it for what it is. It's somebody trying to give back in their own way that there's no way to repay what either one of us do. What we do as cops or what they do as citizens to help support us. We can't repay. It's just everybody's got their own kind of way. I don't know how to explain it, but I like the positivity side of it.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism for the cops, right? Because they're like, this can't be true. Like I see negativity all day.
Yeah.
Somebody can't be honest and genuine and saying thank you. There has to be some kind of angle to it, unless, and this is what I found, and maybe you'll agree with me. The only time that a cop really takes that in is if it's from a kid.
Yeah.
If it's from a kid, then they'll get down to their level. They'll be like I've been with police officers, I've worked with cops that refuse to shake anyone's hands. People would extend their hands like, no, I'm not shaking your hand, man. And they would
Yeah.
say, I'm a germaphobe, whatever. It's just like, no, I don't want to shake their hand. And I'm like, what? But if a kid ran up to them and gave them a hug, they would jump down and they would take a hug in a second. So you're
Right.
not really a germaphobe, bro. You didn't want to shake that dude's hand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But at the end of the day, that handshake, that hello, that fist bump to an adult, you know, and there are cops out there that would probably say, your tactics guys, oh, shaking somebody's hand puts you at a disadvantage or whatever it is.
That's a point of
I have
control for me.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how you view it, right?
Yeah.
And so I was never that guy that would be like, I'm not shaking your hand. I'd be like, yeah, man, what's going on? How are you? Great to see you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I learned that when I got to the precinct. I saw the cops that were working. I took a step back and started realizing which cops really did their job effectively, right? Like, were the ones out there getting guns off the streets. They were out there helping people. They were feeling fulfilled. And I would just sit back and just listen to how they would interact with the public and realizing that they were out there talking to them, not when something was happening, but way before that. Hey, what's going on? How's this one? How's that one? How's your sister doing? Blah, blah, blah. I saw the other day. She said this, that, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, now that officer is being introduced to this person and this person. And now he's building ultimately a network within his community. And like that network is what gets you the information that makes your job 100 times easier. for when you have to do something. Is it absolute? No, it's not absolute. Nothing is absolute. You know, just because you know people in the community doesn't mean that when you finally have to arrest somebody, they're just going to turn around and put their hands behind their back.
Right.
No, but it makes it easier, right? It makes it easier if one of the people on the street are like, no, 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 that's Officer Verdi, man. He's cool. You're all right, bro. He's gonna take care of you. He's gonna get you to the bookings. He'll get you out as fast as he can. Like he's gonna take care. He took care of me. He'll take care of you. And then, all right, man, all right. Like I've personally worked with the cops. Like I've had partners that they were ready to fight and wanted to fight all the time. Like, listen, I'm putting handcuffs on you. We're gonna brawl. And I worked with cops that were just like, I don't need to brawl with you, man. We're both in this together. Like, I came to this scene, you made a mistake. You made a mistake, and now we're both in it. So now this is the consequence that I'm here. And you know what? It sucks for the both of us. Turn around, put your hands behind your back, and I'll treat you like a gentleman as we get down to the bookings, and this is what's going to go on, and blah, blah, blah. I've worked with both guys,
Yeah.
both types of cops. And you know what? The honey always worked a lot easier than the vinegar.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's guys that you hear them call to back you up. Like, we call them 63s here. Like, I'll take 63. And I'm like, I'm good. I can advise. Because I already know. I don't need you coming and amping up my scene. Like,
correct.
I'll handle it by myself. We're good. If I'm canceling you for coming out to my call, you need to wake up.
Yeah.
There's a reason. Either I truly don't, I just need to, I'm saving the unit from having to make the scene, or you're a problem and I know you're a problem.
I don't need the extra headache.
Yeah. I got the scene calm. Everybody's chill. I don't need you coming here trying to amp it up.
Yeah. So, I think that it's super important that we all understand that there's always going to be the time, right? That you have to put hands on somebody. There's always going to be that time when you do put your hands on somebody. It's never going to look good, right? We already acknowledged that.
I think you had just called me when I just had to take somebody down.
Yeah, you had said that, yeah.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Impact Tactical. Impact is a tactical outfitter for the men and women of our military, police, fire departments, and other public safety around the country. Impact's core beliefs is that fearless men and women protect our freedom and safety should have access to the best tactical performance apparel, equipment, and tools on the market. And they shouldn't have to go broke to get it. I've used Impact for about 11 years, and I can attest that they do live up to their core values. So you get a personal recommendation from me. You can find them at impacttactical.com. That's MPAK tactical.com. And be sure to tell them that 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you. Yeah.
You were like, I just had to bring somebody down and, and handle, the business. I'm like, all right, I get you.
I was like, damn it. I never have to do this. And then the one time you call, I'm like, I just had to take a guy down. He tried to run from us. But yeah. Experience helps a lot in that too.
Sure.
Me and the other officer that I was with, we both gave each other the look, I'm like, this is where we're going to run. And so as soon as the metal come out and touched his wrist, he tried to pull and run. He's, 18, 19 years old, 140 pounds, and I'm 190. My partner's 200. Like, he ain't going anywhere. So we dusted him off, picked him up, asked him to make sure he's okay. Did he need an ambulance? And afterwards, he explained, he's like, I just got out of jail and I just made some more bad decisions. Had a gun, went and did, ex-baby mama things, common story for police work. And him getting out of jail, he wanted to go get his stuff that he believed he had the right to. And he went and kicked her door in and took a bunch of stuff. Yep.
Can't do that.
Dumb kid stuff. So he had a lot of learning to do that day.
Yes.
But yeah, man, it's unfortunate, but I try to tell cops, like, you can be the community police guy. You can be him. You can be the positive guy. When I took that kid down, you can hear me on my body cam. I'm giggling, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop. He was like, I can't go back, one of those things. And once he calmed down, his was fight or flight. Mine was, this is just another day in the office.
Right.
And, It's nothing personal, but we can do both. We can be the tip of the spear and still be the friendly person while we're doing it. But a lot of that goes into training and confidence. You got to have the confidence behind the training you've had. And I think a lot of cops don't do that. And I think that's where we start to get into a lot of the problems that you and I talk about. They overcompensate by trying to be the tough guy or being the
Ooh.
asshole. Let
Well, I mean,
it
look,
go, John. Let it go.
I happen to think that there's I happen to think that there's two types of cops, right? Like police officers have power, right? You're given this
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
from your local governments and stuff, right? You're given this power. You've earned that power. You went through your academy, all that kind of stuff. There's two cops. The first cop knows he has the power and uses it when he needs to. The other cop pushes that power out constantly to show I'm the boss. That's it,
Yeah.
right? Like, and to me, like that second guy loses a lot of respect from his fellow cops when they start realizing the type of cop that they are.
Yeah.
And I've encountered many of them. I I always said to myself, I grew up, I had a martial arts background before I became a police officer in boxing, and I was always okay with my hands, like never had to worry about, mixing it up with somebody. So that never really worried me at all. But then you had some guys that had never been punched in the face before, and those
Yeah.
are usually the guys
Yeah.
that are walking around with their chest puffed out, saying, "You will do what I say right now," or "These are the blah blah blah," and now they're on top of somebody as they're screaming for help in the radio, right?
Yeah.
So, um, and look, this is what I've learned through reflection, and it took me a lot of time to reflect, but I reflected that you have to have that moment in your career when you go from fear to confidence. Because when you come out, first thing, like you're scared, right? And you're scared because they literally train you to be scared. They literally,
Yeah.
NYPD
Worst case
said,
scenario every time.
every single time they want you scared, and they'll tell you that in the NYPD. When I went through, they said, we want you scared because if you're scared, you're super vigilant, and if you're super vigilant, you will more likely to not get home, right? That is exactly what the exact words that they said. Well, okay. And then, like, when you're out on the street and you're sitting there and you're worried about everybody on the street that's going to kill you, right? Because that's what they want you to be worried about. Everybody on the street's going to kill you. And then as you're sitting there and you're all like looking around, you're all shaky, and somebody comes up, they're like, "Hey, officer, how you doing?" You're like, "Hey, how you doing? Is the guy? Are you gonna kill me? What's going on here?"
Yeah.
"Oh, hey, officer, how's everything? I'm so happy you're here." "Oh, hey, are they gonna kill me?" And then eventually, when you start finding your rhythm, being out on the street, and you start knowing who the players are, you start knowing, and people start walking up to you, and you're saying hello back, and you're starting to get that rhythm of, I know this person, I know this person, and now that person is coming up to you and saying, "Hey, watch out for that guy across the street. They're dealing drugs, or what this guy over here is doing this or doing that." And now the information starts flowing, and now you're saying, "Okay, now I'm not in reaction mode. I'm in proactive mode about how am I going to address this concern in the
Yeah.
best way for my safety, the safety of everybody here, and to be able to, you know, address the condition and get the crime, whatever's going on." So that's how I did it. And like I said, I only learned that. I had that epiphany moment, right? Um, and it actually came from almost taking somebody's life.
Oh, that's the one you were telling me on the phone that night.
Yeah,
The guy you knew his name.
right. So
Yeah.
um I turned around, and I as a rookie, like, you sit there, you make all these mistakes, blah blah blah. Like, okay, I made a mistake as a rookie. I went and I went on the radio and said stuff, where I made myself look like a fool, right?
Oh no, you weren't
So
mean to dispatch, were you?
no, no, definitely not.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, in this area in Coney Island, there's a it's uh it's an area that's right off the train station, and I heard a whole bunch of people screaming out of the train station, and I'm like, and I'm on a foot post, so I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I'm looking around, and I see this what they call a dollar cab. So it's just a like a car service, and he comes screeching up to the red light, and of all things, a pit bull like runs and jumps on the hood of the car and starts barking at the driver of the car, right? And I'm like, I what like I didn't know how to handle that at all. So I was just like, hey, Central, be advised, I heard a bunch of screaming at the at the train station, and now there's a car that came screeching up, and there's a pit bull on the hood barking at it. And as I'm saying that, the light turns green. The guy floors it. The pit bull goes flying off, and he takes off. And then here goes the pit bull taking off after the car. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I don't know what to do with that.
It's like a
And I'm sitting,
cartoon.
yeah. And I'm like, what the? So Central obviously is like, well, what do you need? What kind of assistance do you need? And I'm like, yeah, I really don't know. Right. So,
You're being honest.
which is exactly what you don't put over the radio,
Yeah.
as a rookie in the 6-0 precinct. Right. So then you hear like the car screeching like 4 blocks down, and it comes back the other way. And at the same light that I'm standing at, it comes screeching again. And here comes the pit bull, and it jumps back on top of the hood, and it's barking at the driver. And then the pit bull, he hits the gas, pit bull goes flying off, and the pit bull takes off again. And I'm like, Central, it happened again. I don't even know what to do. Like, this is so, like, and
So
all of a sudden you just hear the cops they're all like barking over the radio. And then
that's
and then
great.
one cop comes on, and he's like, look, bro, he said, please advise please advise that unit to go into the butcher store that's on the corner and tie a pork chop around your neck so the dog will chase after you instead of the car. And I was mortified, right? And then
Oh,
next thing you
I
know,
bet
one of
roll
the
call was nice the next day.
oh, I was dead. But so here comes one of the sector cars. They come screeching up, and they open the back door, and they whistle, and the dog, the pit bull, goes running into the back of the cop car, and they just looked at me,
That's
and
an
they just shook
experienced guy right
they
there.
just shook their head like this, and they go, "Don't ever, ever go on the radio again." And they drove off, right? And so obviously I was super embarrassed to find out that that dog was like the dog that patrols Astroland for Coney Island. So are you
Okay.
familiar with Coney Island at all?
I mean, I know of it, but
Yeah. So they call that dog the mayor because it's the dog that patrols Astroland at night. And apparently, I don't know, he got out, and so all the cops knew him.
oh,
They
that's
called him the
great.
mayor, so which was pretty funny. So like every night after that, I had to go by and like get some hamburgers and throw it to the mayor over the fence and say, like, thanks, bro. As they
Sorry.
Yeah, so obviously I got stuck on a punishment for that. So if you know anything about Coney Island is shaped like the letter T. Like, you go into the bottom, and then it branches left or right. So
Okay.
if you go down and you make the left, it brings you into Little Odessa. So it's basically like a big Russian neighborhood, and Spanish. Um, and so when you walk down Brighton Beach Avenue, it's all stores that are like Russian stores. And so my punishment post was that I had to be on like during the day, there was a burglary initiative going on, which
Yeah.
was basically, Officer Verdi walking the beat, trying to find this burglar and this pickpocket guy and this and that. I'm like, all right, no problem. So, my old man told me before I became a cop, anytime that you go into any community, anything that you do, always, always, always go into every store, say hello. Just get out there, make your face known, say hello. So that's what I did. I walked into every store saying hello to everybody, and nobody spoke English. They all told me what I thought was hello. Every store owner, hey, and I'm saying, I asked the guys in the command, like, how do you say hello in Russian? And they're like, Privyet. I'm like, oh, all right, yeah, no problem. I walk in and I'm like, hey, how's everybody going? How's everything going? Privyet. And they're looking at me and they're saying something else back, right? I
Okay.
have no idea what they're saying. I'm like, all right, listen, I'm out here today if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. And I go into the next store, same thing, next door, same thing. And there I am for like weeks, right? And so finally, I sit down in the command one day. I'm eating my lunch, and one of the officers that speaks Russian, he's like, "So
Oh
how's
no.
everything going?" And I said, "I think it's going great." They're like, "Yeah." They're like, "Did you catch the guy yet?" I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't catch the guy yet, but I'm seeing all the store owners. I'm saying Privyet," and he's like, "What are they saying back to you?" I'm like, "They're not saying Privyet," and he's like, "Well, what are they saying?" I'm like, I don't know, I can't say it." He's like, "Are they saying, blah 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 blah?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's what they're saying." He's like, "Yeah, that means go fuck yourself in Russian."
That's fucking great. I would have done the same thing to you. Oh, that's the best.
And I was just like, "They are? That's what they've been saying?" He's like, "Yeah, each one of them tell you go fuck yourself." I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh
that's
god."
great.
So I
Uh,
was like, I honestly, I thought that was hysterical,
that's
right?
the best.
Yeah. So
That's good old fashioned hazing right there.
yeah, yeah. But here I am, and I'm I'm out there, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm not,
Sorry.
honestly, what I'm not is I'm not scared. Like, because I'm getting out there and I'm going in and out of all these stores and meeting all these people, and none of
Yeah.
them spoke English. Well, at least none of them wanted to speak English to me, right? So it wasn't like I was having these in-depth conversations, right?
Yeah.
So weeks later, I'm with my partner. I'm back in the car finally, right? And we get a call of an assault in progress, and we come screeching up. And imagine like one of those old boxy Mercedes Benzes,
Yeah.
So imagine like you come screeching up, and there's the Mercedes Benz, and on the other side of the Mercedes Benz is a man beating a woman with a club. You know, the club that you put on the steering wheel,
Oh,
like so that
like the
nobody steals it?
anti-theft. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And he's hitting the woman with the club in the head.
Damn, that thing's straight steel.
And we came screeching up. I jumped out. Police don't move. Show me your hands. He looks at me and he winds up to take one last swing at the woman. Okay. And as he starts to take that swing and his arms are starting to come forward, I start squeezing the trigger. And then I stopped. And the only reason why I stopped was because I recognized him as one of the store owners that I would go and see. Man that told me to go fuck myself every single day.
Yeah.
I recognized him, right?
Yeah.
And when in that split second that I stopped pulling the trigger, he dropped the club.
Probably because he recognized you.
I don't know, but all I
Hopefully.
know is that created 2/10 of a second. And in that 2/10 of a second, because I said in my mind, I know that guy, that it saved his life. I now we can argue if that man's life should have been saved or not. We can argue if he got the correct punishment that he deserved, right?
Right.
He went to jail, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, that man lived to tell the tale. Okay. And so that's what I'm trying to create with Hey Blue. Through familiarity, I'm trying to create those 2/10 of a second more so that people don't get hurt. And that's on both sides of the coin. So when that happened to me, and that messed me up pretty big at the time, because to sit there and know that you were about to take somebody's life and then didn't, and had to, and then had to run to this woman who was beaten to a pulp, and having to scoop her up and take her to the hospital and take care of her and all that, and saying to yourself, man, I should have, I should have squeezed that trigger. Well, then should I really have? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like my own morals, right? As an officer, like to me, that was that was something that I have obviously lived with my entire life. And no, thankfully, I've never taken anyone's life as a police officer. I've been shot at. I've had guns to my head. You name it. I've lived it. I've never taken anyone's life. And these are the things that I think about the most about in reflection about what were those moments that I had that I can sit there and say that built my confidence to be able to handle the street and what has gone on. And
Yeah.
then if I can do it, and like any cop could do it. I'm there's nothing special about me, you know? So having that epiphany moment, having that moment where you go from totally scared to a level of confidence where you can handle things on the street. I'm not saying that you have to be, you know, like in the clouds. That's not what I'm saying. Everybody, like, it's one thing to be vigilant, right? It's one thing to be prepared, right? You train so you're prepared. You train because if you're scared and you're trained, now you're prepared.
Yeah.
So that's the way that my career went and the way that I've been able to think about it. Um, and maybe that help resonates with some of your listeners, that some of the officers that listen to your podcast. Maybe something that resonates with you.
Yeah. I pick up two big, maybe three epiphany moments that seem like it led you to this and that. The one with the guy that wanted to give you the hug.
Hmm.
Um, maybe or maybe not the Coney Island mayor experience, like the whole path of that, and
Yeah.
then obviously this one,
Yeah.
where you almost had to pull the trigger, and then now you retire, I'm assuming, eventually, and
Hmm.
let's get into the Hey Blue. What's the
Sure.
concept? What 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 caused it?
Well, to understand Hey Blue, right? So you take my background as a police officer, right? So that's a given, okay? And then understand that during 9/11, I'm here, I'm saying I want to do something greater than myself, right? And then I have children, right? So for me, I always watched what's his name? Now, of course, I'm not going to remember his name, but the guy that they have the things on ESPN. He was the famous coach
Bobby
that
V?
coach Bobby V. Right? They
Yeah.
did he did the famous speech about how how he got cancer, right? And that he basically gave that speech right before he passed away when he had cancer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that he talked about was how his father always believed in him, right? And how he told his father, like his father told him, look, I believe in you so much that I'll follow you anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. You tell me and I'm there. And he went and he packed an away bag and he left it always by his front door. And he told his son, whenever, whatever, my bag is packed and I'm there for you no matter what. And so that always resonated with me as I started into my own journey into fatherhood. Because as we discussed earlier, my old man, he didn't believe in it that way. He didn't, that wasn't his mantra. His mantra was, I go to work, I arrest people, I make overtime so that I can provide for my family. To me, that's incredible what he did and absolutely the sacrifices that he made. I wanted to learn from that and take it a step further and say, how could I explain to my children at the time, my son, that I am so ride or die for you that it does not matter what, I'm going to try to do everything I can to put you in the best position to succeed. So My journey took me to um, in living. Once I retired, I actually moved to New Zealand.
You
We had
moved
our
there.
son. Yeah, we had our son here in the States, and then my wife, my son, and I moved to New Zealand. My wife is younger than I, and she wanted to pursue a career in be a veterinarian, to be a
Oh,
veterinarian. So we
how
moved
cool
to
is
New
that?
Zealand so that she can go to school that is basically like the Harvard of veterinary schools.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and once you graduate this veterinary school, you can literally be a veterinarian anywhere in the world. Like
Oh,
the world is your oyster. So we moved to New Zealand, um, and we put my son, who at the time was 3, in their schooling environment in New Zealand. And when we did that, we saw that their learning environment is nothing like the United States. It is literally child led, and whatever a child does or finds interesting, the educators that are there to give greater knowledge to whatever is interesting to them, right? So, for instance, my son, we dropped him off, and he found a worm, started digging up the entire grounds of the kindergarten, found a whole bunch of worms, and the educators brought him inside and identified the different types of worms that he found on the internet, and then together, and I'm telling you, this is a 3-year-old kid with these educators. They created a composting area on the garden with all of these worms, and actually created a side fundraising hustle or business, whatever you want to call it, where they were charging local gardeners $1 per liter for all of the compost stuff that was coming out.
no shit.
So think about that. Like think
That's
about
interesting.
the multiple layers of just knowledge from a 3-year-old at this
Right.
point, right? So,
Just
um,
fostering curiosity.
correctly, correct.
Yeah.
And then getting the resources behind that curiosity, right? So, when we came back to the United States, unfortunately, my wife fell ill. So they have like socialized medicine out there, and I have my regular health care here. So for us, it was better to come back and have my wife taken care of for what she needed at the time. So we had to move back from New Zealand to the States. We wind up moving back to New Jersey to
How
like
how many years were you in the I'm
one
sorry,
year, one
just 1
year.
year?
Yeah,
Okay.
a little over a year. Yeah.
Okay.
And literally like created a whole life out there, like you name it, like everything. And we're about to buy a house, and then said, "Oh crap, we have to get back to the States."
Uh,
So, um, and then we moved back to New Jersey so my wife could be near hospitals, and then we also found out that my wife's pregnant with my daughter. So we put my son into a traditional learning environment in um, in New Jersey. I'm not going to say the district, but I can tell you it's very, very expensive.
okay.
And when we put him in there, he was there for a month, and the teacher comes over to us and says, "Yeah, we have to have a parent teacher conference." And I'm like, "For what?" And like, "Well, your child won't sit down and shut up." And I looked at him. I said, "Excuse me?" And they're like, your 4-year-old child now, won't sit down and shut up. When we're doing, he's asking too many questions when it's story time. And I said, questions like what? Like, are they about the story? And they're like, yeah, but we can't get a word in edgewise. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, he's asking questions because he's curious. And you're trying to shut that down. And they're like, well, yeah, when it's story time, no kids are allowed to talk. And I'm just
Mm,
like, that's absurd. So immediately we took him out of that school. Like, no,
yeah.
I don't feel that that is in my child's best interest, right? So I'm like, okay, thanks. So ultimately, our travels bring us down to Florida. Ultimately, all the way up to where we are now in Melbourne, because Melbourne is at the time the highest had the highest concentration of homeschooling parents with the most homeschooling resources for kids.
Okay.
All right. So, and now imagine sitting down at the Verdi. I'll take you into the Verdi family table. We're sitting down. I got my 5 year old son. My my no, he's yeah, he's 5. My daughter's 1, and we're sitting there, and I'm saying to my wife, "How do we give our children the best education that we can?" Right? So we said it's about community. It's not about you and I. It's about us, and then the community in which that we bring in to help. So the very first thing we did is we came to this area. We found this area in Melbourne. It's called the O'Galley Arts District. And one of the things that brought us to this area is because it reminded us so much of Brooklyn, because it's very walkable and stuff like that. So we had an art museum literally like a block away from us. Like, it was just, everything was super convenient. So we decided that we were going to put our roots there. And the first thing that we did was we started a community garden. Very first thing that we did, because we wanted to meet people that wanted to have a positive effect in their community, right?
Yeah.
O'Galley Arts District, this was going on 7 years ago. O'Galley Arts District, plagued with drugs, prostitution, just like not the place that anybody would want to be. But to us, we were just like, hey, man, it reminds me of Brooklyn, like drugs, prostitution. Yeah, not a big deal. Like, all right, we can
Yeah.
handle that, right? So basically, we put a thing out on Facebook, and we're like, hey, we're going to start a community garden here. If you'd like to join us on, it was actually September 11th, 2000, and what are we in now? 22, so 2018 or whatever. It was 2016, right?
Okay.
It's because it was the 15-year anniversary of 9/11. And what we said was, okay, I'm going to plant 15 trees in commemoration of 9/11, but if you want to be there, bring something. And 75 people showed up that day.
Okay.
75 people showed up, and everybody brought something.
That's a lot of people.
So a lot of people with a lot
Yeah.
of stuff, right? And
Yeah.
you name it, sugar cane, like anything to plant, right? And then you start learning. Well, I've never gardened in a day in my life, to be honest with you. I'm not a gardener. I don't like soil. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. But we understood for my son that that's what he enjoyed. Remember the worms?
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, we'll start a community garden. All these people are coming. So people started showing up, and the one thing that they constantly brought was knowledge, how to permaculture, how to grow in this soil, blah blah blah, how to create soil, blah blah blah, this and that. So my son, now 5 turning 6, he starts learning, and he's learning exponentially faster than normal about how these people are trying to show him how to do these things.
Right.
So we said, hey man, this should be a class that we should teach. So we started something called Urban Farm Labs, and it started on Saturdays at the community garden. Started with 3 kids. In 2 months, we had 85 kids.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
And then we said, well, if we're doing this, we can create an entire curriculum around this. Let's do it. So we literally filed the 501c3, created a not for profit school, and created the curriculum surrounding the learning your ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and everything in between through the growing of an urban garden. And what we did was we said, and why this is so important is because our school is literally about community. So imagine a place where you have the community garden, you have a schoolhouse, but the kids venture into the actual community, visiting different storefronts during the day, using those storefronts as their classrooms. Like, oh, you have a business that doesn't open until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll go there we'll go there for an hour from 9 to 10. Would you rent it out to us? Yeah, absolutely. How much would you charge? Well, you're a not for profit. I'm not going to charge you much, just as long as you have your insurance and blah blah. Okay, and here they go in. And when they go in, what are these kids learning? They're learning about that business. They're learning about the owner. They're learning about why they opened up that business and why is that business important to this place right here. Why is
Yeah.
that important to the Eau Gallie Arts District, right? And then you start finding out the history of Eau Gallie, and you start finding out, who the Rossiters were and who these people were and that, and why is this important? Why is that important? And then you find out who are the most important literary people that lived here, like Zora Neale Hurston, who was huge in the civil rights movement, and this and that. And now you start learning so much about this area. The one thing that people do know about Florida is usually people that grow up in Florida, they get their education, and then they leave Florida. They go somewhere else because, hey, it's Florida, man. It's like, who cares? I'll go solve the problems in New York. I'll go solve the problems in California.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems that need solving here. We need you to care about here. So we start teaching kids about place. It's place-based learning. And then we changed it up and said, well, in a traditional environment, kids learn, you sit at your desk and you learn through your textbooks and all that kind of stuff. No, 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 no. So what we created was project-based learning we brought in so that each kid is on a timeline and they're all working towards the same goal. Because whether you're a police officer, whether you work for corporate America, whether you have your own product that you're trying to create or whatever it is, you need a team of people. Nobody can do anything 100% by themselves. It does not work. Okay? If even you on your podcast, right? You need people to come on and it's a team. We right now you and I are a team. We're creating a product, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. So if I'm sitting there and I'm bringing you on, we have to teach you how to be part of a team. And that what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and how do you build that team in order to succeed? So and through project-based learning, that's what we teach the children. And then lastly, which is how it all ties into policing, was social emotional learning. Now, I know for some that might be a hot topic, right? Social emotional learning, we utilize something called conscious discipline, right? Where maybe not everybody agrees with the concept. For us, it's very important that we understand that kids that are at that age, pre-K level, 4, 5, they're super frustrated. They're frustrated because they don't have the tools, they don't have the ability to speak like we do, right? If they want something, they go and grab it, right? I want that toy, I'm grabbing it, right? But if they had turned around and said, "Hey, I'd really like to play with that toy," and the other child said, "Oh, okay, you can have it in a minute from now," is that child going to be frustrated and reach for that toy? Most likely not, right? So what we started teaching the kids is, okay, we understand that you're frustrated because you don't have all the words. Let's start teaching you some of these key words that you can use so that you're not walking around frustrated. And when you do get frustrated and there is a conflict, how do we do conflict resolution right then and there? Okay, let's address it. Let's work through it. Let's bring it down, and everybody can walk away and everybody feels whole again. Okay, there's not, so that's what we do in our school. The very first step, social emotional learning, learning how to calm yourself down, work through it with your partners, with your fellow classmates. We're all on the same team here. We're all working towards the same goal, and all of those goals are centralized about our place, where we are in the community. Okay?
All right.
So, that being said, if you're sitting there and you're teaching kids, and mind you now, and I'm not saying by any means that we were like it was because of us. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is conscious discipline was then adopted in Brevard County Public Schools for their kindergartners. Okay? And I'm specifically saying it was not because of us. I think that when they heard that we were doing it, other places were doing it, people started, they were like, hey, we really have to look into this. So we'll now realize that now you're teaching these kids 4, 5, 6 years old, 7, as they start going through school, you're giving kids choices when otherwise you'd be telling them no. I don't want to knock your kid down. I don't want to tell your kid no, they can't do something, because that's going to, like, that eventually is going to hurt their confidence. I want to build their confidence. So it's me saying, like, no, don't touch that stove, which you and I both know is going to burn them. We tell them, hey, listen, touching that stove is not safe. You could touch this or you can touch this. Which would you choose? Okay. I'm empowering you for a choice. I'm not telling you not to do so. I'm telling you that that's an unsafe option. Choose this one or this one. Please feel empowered to do so. And you know what? When you do it, you start doing it through repetition over and over and over again. Now the kids are gaining that ear to say, hey, you know what? That's not a safe choice for me, but I can choose to do this or I can choose to do this. And I'm going to choose to do this. Great choice. You know? So now we're developing all these kids to have that kind of language, that kind of framework, right?
Right.
Could you tell me one officer that would know how to use that?
Not really. I mean,
No, you can't.
no.
Because an officer says, if I'm telling you to do something, you do it now. You do it right now. You don't like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm not going to give you three choices on what you should do. I need you to do this shit now. Right.
Yeah.
And I get it. Absolutely, I get it. But I personally feel that police officers should come into the classrooms and hear how it's being used. Okay. I'm not saying that they have to use it. I'm not even saying that it's in the realm of possibility for them to use it. But what I am saying is to get to know these kids and understand that they're learning in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. So here we are doing that. Right. And we start bringing, so at the time that I'm doing that, I'm asking officers to come into the classroom, local officers. They're just like, yeah, no. Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Oh, okay. All right. Well, look, I told him I'm doing this other thing, right? And it's a story time that I do, right? Because the most important thing is to get the officers in front of young kids, right? In a positive way. Because that only benefits the kids, it benefits the cops. Absolutely, right? So I said, officers, would you be willing to come into I started at a coffee shop. Come to this coffee shop with me. There's all kids under the age of 4, and we're just going to read books with them. Just whatever storybooks. And they're like, yeah, okay, we could do that. Like, that's nothing. All right, no problem. So we asked, they send the CRO. CRO sits down. We give him a book to read. He starts reading to the kids. At the end, I say, hey, man, how do you feel? He's like, yeah, that was pretty cool, man. That was pretty cool. I said, awesome. All right. So you know what? I said, I really think that there's something here, and I'm going to develop a special story time for us to participate in. Are you willing? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I get permission to go into the pre-K classrooms in Brevard County, the Title One pre-K classrooms. Do you know what Title One is?
No.
Title One is basically the kids that have free or reduced lunch, like on the low social economic,
Okay.
strata. Like
Yeah.
so,
Basically how I grew up.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And usually those classrooms are the most diverse, right? So I said, okay, we're going to start going into these classrooms with books and start reading and connecting with the kids. So officers are like, yeah, that's easy. That's nothing, John. All right, cool, let's do it. And then I reached out to my local college, Florida Tech. Well, Florida Tech has a black student union. So I said, hey, black student union, I'm a retired police officer, blah, blah, blah. I have these books here I want to read to pre-K kids. Would you be willing to come into the classroom and read them with me? They're like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Absolutely do that. Awesome. So now here we go, walking into this classroom. I got a cop on one arm, and I got a young man or woman of color in this hand, and we're walking in the classroom, and we sit down, and now we start reading these books. All of the books, they focus on empathy, love, connection, right? Because ultimately, that's what we all want, right? We all want to feel loved, show empathy, be connected, right? Like super simple. So we start doing it. And we read books, we sing songs, Five Little Ducks, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, right? And at the end, we have a bubble party, right?
Yeah.
Like, what kid does not love a bubble party?
Yeah.
Okay. The kids are going off the wall, man. Like, they are loving every ounce of it. And at the end, the three of us sit down and I start explaining to the kids that this young lady to my right, her name is Faraha, and Faraha is at Florida Tech, and she's studying to be, an aerospace designer. And they're like, "Wow, what's an aerospace designer?" And she's like, "Well, I design airplanes. I do this, I do that." And they're like, "You design airplanes?" "Well, yeah." "Oh, that's so amazing. Tell us more." Blah blah blah. And then because normally when you walk into a room with a cop, what's the first thing that everybody wants to talk about?
The gun belt.
Yeah. Hey, are those handcuffs? Are those guns? What do you do with mace? Can I show you? No, you can't show me because it'll hurt your eyes, right? Like all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, but now they're sitting there. Now you're talking about here's Faraha, and everybody's learning about Faraha. Who's learning the most about Faraha? The
Probably the
cop sitting
cop.
next to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cop's looking at Farah saying, "Oh, wow, I didn't know that she went to Florida Tech. I didn't know that she was studying aerospace design. She's, a young woman of color." And now here's the cop sitting next to me. And it's not, I'm trying to remember that particular cop's name, but it's not Officer Taylor. This is Officer Mark, and okay, Officer Mark. Hey, Officer Mark, do you have kids that go to this school? Do you have any kids that blah blah blah? So now I'm sitting there, and in this forum, I'm humanizing everybody, right, in front of the kids. So at the end, what do you think the kids do? They all bum rush the cop and the student to give them hugs and high fives. And you know what? Now that student is looking at that officer getting all these hugs and that appreciation. And you know what I can say? The cops can't handle it.
Yeah.
That affection that they get is really tough for them. And they start getting emotional. And now think of think of that student that's sitting there seeing this cop that's all emotional because he's getting hugs from a student, hugs from these little kids. And now they're sitting there saying, "Wow, I wonder why he's so emotional." And now that spurns another conversation. And now that young lady brings that conversation back to the Black Student Union at Florida Tech, where they're all sitting down having a conversation and debriefing about what happened and was it a good experience and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, we all work together to do one thing, to build connection. We all work together under the premise of we're building connections so we could all stay safe.
Yeah.
So, um, in doing that, that was pre COVID. Um, we were able to do it in 3 states. We did it here in Florida, we did it in Austin, Texas, and we did it in LA. And the cops loved it. Kids loved it. Teachers loved it. Departments loved it. Everybody, community members loved it. Loved it. Pandemic hits. I'm like, oh crap, can't go into schools.
Right.
So we started doing a virtual story time. And we would read books, sing songs the same exact way we would do it. And we would live broadcast into pre K classrooms across the United States. So we wound up getting 25 police departments in 14 states to participate. Officers, whether they were patrol officers or CROs or SROs or what it was, got you in front of the camera, asked you to read a book, do head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Super simple, right? Well, as we're doing that, people are talking to us and they're like, "Hey, John, this is great, man. We love how you're building connection between the officers and the community." But that's what little kids like. It's easy to build a connection between a little kid. I said, "Okay, so what would you like to see?" "Well, what about all these local activists that are screaming that they want to be heard and nobody's listening to them?" "Okay, so what would you recommend?" "I don't know." "Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Would they So that's when George Floyd happened. Okay.
Okay.
So locally, I go to the George Floyd protests. Okay. And um, I just went around and just started listening to what people were saying. And what they were saying is, we're fed up and we want a seat at the table. We want to be able to give our opinion about how we should be policed, and that opinion should be taken in and heard. Okay. But when you go and you sit down with a police chief and you talk to him about that, a police chief will listen, man. Police chiefs across the United States, they're literally drinking water through a fire hose, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so are police officers too, right? Once you put that on and you're rolling, right? Like your day is running. So I turned around and I said, well, how about this? How about we sit down at a table, very small table, of a couple of local activists and the police chief or the administrative staff, whatever, the higher staff, and we have a conversation. And we'll start that conversation with, tell us your truths. Local activists, tell us your truths. But here's the caveat, it has to be your truth. It can't be a truth that you heard. It can't be a truth that somebody else, in some way told you to say. It literally has to be your truth and what you wanted to see. So that now, sitting at a table, breaking bread over a chef cooked meal, or at least we have one thing in common, right, Eric? And that's how amazing this food is. We could start there.
Yeah.
One thing to start with. And then we could start talking about what's going on in our community and how do we solve that problem together. And you know what? Local activist came, sat down. She was talking to the chief. She was like, look, this is what I moved here from Chicago. I did this, I did that. I've lived this kind of life, blah, blah, blah. I want a better life for my kids, blah, blah. And I just turned around and said, raise your hand if you're a person that wants a better life for their kid. Yeah. So we all have similarities right there, right? And then start building on those similarities and found out that it was a lack of knowledge that truly was the impact. Like what you heard and what you see and what has gone on, right? Super important for you to express what you've gone through. But now, what's happening here locally, and is all the information that you're getting the right information, right? And
Yeah.
then and then who's the onus on? Is it on the police department or is it on the community member? Right? Like, and this was the best. They're like, hey, we hear that you're going around and you're arresting all the homeless and you're doing this and you're doing that. And the chief was like, well, as a matter of fact, we realized some time ago that we can't arrest our way out of homelessness. It's just a cycle that just doesn't happen. So our officers now have been trained to give a lot more resources, to the homeless population, and also to show a lot more empathy. And they were like, really? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I know you didn't know that. And then I said to the chief, well, how would they know that?
Yeah. How are you telling people that?
And the chief's like, it's on our website. And I said, great. Raise your hand if you've been on the Melbourne Police Department website. And nobody raised their hand,
Yeah.
obviously. Because how are you going to get this information out? What is the best way to do that? And who is
Podcasting.
actually going to listen to that? Right?
Right.
Especially when you have a social media policy that says you can't post anything.
Right.
Bingo.
Yep.
So you're like, well, yeah, how would you do that, chief? He's like, yeah, I guess we have to kind of strategize on that. Yeah. And and so many other things came out. We call that the Hey Blue Plate Special. Okay. And then lastly, we did something. So it's called a proof of concept, right? To something called to Hey Blue, right? So
Okay.
right now we're developing um, a mobile platform that is going to incentivize the public to actually seek out and approach officers just to say hello. And when they do, they're going to receive points that they can redeem for things that they need from Walmart, Target, right? Or they'll be able to pay down their municipal penalties like parking tickets or moving violations, right?
Okay.
And then the police officers that participate, they get points too.
Well, hold on. Can
Yeah,
I build up a credit for
let's
a
do it.
future parking,
Let's
a
do it.
future parking violation that I know I'm going to do?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. Absolutely.
That'd be the best.
Yeah.
Like if there's an
So
event downtown and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna get the parking ticket and park really close to the event because I got enough credits.
it's all right. I got the credits. It's fine.
That's right.
Right. And you know what? For like in talking to municipalities, they're like, well, you don't pay that parking ticket. It goes into fines and fees and all that kind of stuff. And now we're chasing you. And ultimately, what does it come into? It comes into a suspension of your license, right?
Right.
And now that's one suspended driver that's driving around that eventually goes into the system and gets arrested for it for whatever, right? So just to give you an example, um, in Phoenix, Arizona, there was 45,000 suspended licenses. Okay, 45,000 suspended licenses. They did a license suspension give back, where they gave back 7,000 of those 45,000 licenses. Okay, and they tracked those 7,000 people to see what the financial impact of them going back on the road was. Okay, so that I believe it was $87 million back into the local economy for those 7,000 drivers going back on the road. Okay.
Okay.
Think about that. Now, if you were able to get all these drivers, now we'll take Florida. Florida has 2 million people with suspended driver's licenses.
Dang.
That would be $24 billion back into the Florida economy.
Yeah.
Now, what if we said, well, if let's just say for argument's sake, you owed $50, but you saw police officers in your community, you got some Hey Blue points, and instead of paying $50, you only had to pay $20, right? $20 is a lot more feasible than 50, right? But it was also driven by the positive connections that were made between officers and yourself, right?
Right.
So now that's a win for any municipality. Wait a minute, I could sit here and show that the positive connections that my officers made actually not only we have these positive connections, but now we also got 20 out of the 50 in our hand versus having to try to put all these other administrative things which cost money to get that other 50 back. So now I got $20 plus I had, 10 positive connections between the officer and that person. And now we're building that, right? That connection, that rapport. So now if you think about it, positive connections this way should mean negative should go down, right? And now here we are, we have stuff, we have money in our hand, positive connections happen, and now we have more money in tax revenue coming back because that person is back on the road contributing to the local economy.
Okay, so I get how a police officer would gain points.
Mhm.
How does a citizen get points given to them?
So that once they walk up to the officer, right, on our platform, people will be able to see the officer. They approach the officer and they do a virtual handshake on their phone. That virtual handshake gets verified by the officer. That's it.
Oh, okay. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So,
So
okay.
I was gonna say, because I'm old school mindset. I'm thinking like subway stamp card. Like that's,
Right.
you know what I mean? That's kind of
Yeah.
the way I was looking at that.
Yeah. No, everything is done, obviously, virtually. Everything is done through a virtual handshake that happens through the proximity of where you are. We've been working with the Melbourne Police Department to put in all of the safety concerns that they have to make sure that it is safe for the officers to use. Um, and that they would want to use it, right?
Right.
So imagine now that you are an officer, right? As we could tell, you're in a police department right now, where I'm sure that they are trying to make it very possible for officers to be out more in the community, being available for people to connect with, right?
Yeah, my department is amazing when it comes to public connection. I really love I wish I could I'll tell you offline one of the
Okay.
latest recruitment videos that we did. And it's not very hard. People know where I work. I just can't
Right.
mention it on here, but
Yeah, no doubt.
I'll show you. We do a really good job of connecting, and we have an NPO program, and we also have, I call them the NPO 2.0, which means neighborhood police officer. They're that liaison between the patrol guys and the community, but we even have a one that's elevated above that, where their job is mainly to get a hold of the community leaders, the ones that aren't necessarily into um, the police as much and stuff like that, and they specialize in that even a little bit more.
Yes.
And that's very new. We just really started getting that out, but I'm curious about doing this. I definitely know I could get it introduced at my department, so I will try to facilitate that and see if
Thank
that's
you.
something they think would be a good fit for our city.
Yeah,
But
right. Right
I
now we're looking for any officers that would want to beta test it. Right.
okay,
So right now we have 13 officers across the United States that have signed up to beta test it. Um, and it's some very large, some very small departments,
yeah,
but it's we feel we're trying to make it so it's something that a police department would say absolutely, but we want to put the power in your hand, right? I want to put the power in Eric's hand
yeah,
because if you think about it, you have police officers across the United States that are taking into their own hands ways in which to connect with their community that um, show that they're actually making a connection. Okay.
yeah.
For example, I would say the most famous person is probably police officer Tommy Norman. I'm sure you heard that name before.
I know the name. I just can't picture.
Okay, he's a shave-headed gentleman like myself from North Little Rock, Arkansas,
Okay.
and so what he does is incredible. He goes back into his community constantly to connect with his community. And he was doing it on patrol, he was doing it on his Instagram for a long time, and his department said, "Yeah, we can't let you do that anymore. So, it's against our guidelines." So,
Yep.
what he did was he went out and he created a not-for-profit. He created a not for profit organization, and he still went out and he highlighted all of the positive or just all the people in his community, right? And all the people that he'd come into contact with, and he would tell their stories. And
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by HRH Combat Arms. They can turn your vision into reality. They specialize in gunsmithing and Cerakoting. Your Cerakote specialist is Air Force veteran and retired police sergeant Paul Ware, aka the Sarge. He can Cerakote your firearms, auto parts, tools, even your sports equipment. This veteran-owned business is located at 5025 Saunders Suite, 103, Fort Worth, Texas 76119. You can call them at 682-304-0363, and you can find them online at www.hrhcombatarms.com. That's www.hrhcombatarms.com.
you know what started happening? He started gaining more and more followers, and more people started hearing the stories about the people that he connected with. And then they started sending him resources for those people. Oh, I heard that, such and such is a Green Bay Packers fan. The Green Bay Packers went and signed a jersey and sent it to him to give to the guy. Oh, I
Oh,
heard that such and such, likes to do this. Blah, blah, blah. Somebody from London, England sent $100 gift card to that person for him to give to that person so that they can do this.
yeah,
Right. So that is literally like crowdsourcing the world to be able to bring resources locally. Right.
right.
Now, who does that help? Like the officer, he's building that connection. He has an incredible connection with his community, right? Does that help his police department? Tremendously. I'm sure the flow of information is, I can only imagine, right? Does it help? Obviously, it helps the community members. It helps people around the world because they're saying, "Hey, I'm doing something. I'm getting to know people that are in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm doing the right thing." Right?
Yeah,
So now, how many big companies out there right now have missions where they're trying to do the right thing? They just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Think about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan himself. He made a $2 million donation, $1 million to the IACP, $1 million to the NAACP, I think, or the ACLU, one or the other. Because he said, "Look, man, I don't know the answer, but here's $2 million. Hopefully, y'all can figure it out."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and as you have big companies, obviously, I'm going to say a company right now that every cop that's listening to this, their ears are going to melt. I'm telling you right now. But Ben and Jerry's, right? Ben and Jerry's right now,
Yeah.
like social justice, they want to put their money towards social justice causes, right? They
Right.
want, the biggest thing is they want people to be in a fair and equitable space, and that people are treated fairly and justly, right? I don't think anyone is against that per se. Okay, maybe the things that they're funding might put a little might poke other people in different ways. I get it, I understand, but at the end of the day, if you look at specifically the fact that I don't think anyone here, I hope that anyone that's listening wants people to be treated fairly, to be treated equitably, right? Like, how do we come to the table and make sure at the bare minimum that we're all being treated as humans, right?
Right.
There's a ton of corporate dollars that goes towards that, right? Well, they're trying to find ways to do that, right? I mean, on the other side of that, and this is going to bug you out too, let's look at Walmart, okay? Walmart, there's no greater supporter of um, police departments than Walmart. Okay. If you think about it, Walmart every year does Shop with the Cop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know that Shop with the Cop was actually not created by Walmart? Shop with the Cop was actually created by the communities that Walmart services, whatever you, right? So,
Yeah.
and how it is every single Walmart, and there's 6,100 of them across the United States, gives their individual stores a budget of $5,000 to use as discretionary funds. Okay. So every year, the majority of those funds actually go towards community policing, supporting community policing.
Yeah. So this is how Hey Blue gets its backers. It gets all of these people that
Corporates,
need places to put their money, and in my opinion, there's no better person to start helping allocate people stuff than the police, because if we're embedded in our communities like we should be, we know where to allocate that stuff and not give it to people just trying to game the system.
absolutely. But you're not gaming the system because you, as even an individual. So I am of the opinion that the easiest thing that a police department can do that could bring tremendous change into the department and help every single officer is to sign up for the Bigs with Badges program of Big Brothers Big Sisters. Having your officers be mentors to children in the community in which they serve is only going to help that officer tremendously. And I'm not paid by them. I am not, they are a partner now, but I don't make, like, only because they see what I'm doing. I've been speaking out so much about it. They're like, hello, like, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, I don't make any money. I don't make any money from any of this, by the way. This is a not-for-profit. I don't get paid a dime for any of this. I think it's important for everybody to understand that. But if you are an officer right now and you came out, the first thing that you say is, I want to make a difference. And then you go out there and you strap on that vest and you put on that shield and you go out there and you realize that you are a raindrop in an ocean of difference. And so you have to start looking for ways to fill your cup so that you feel fulfilled in making a difference, right?
Yeah,
Would you agree with that statement?
absolutely. Because you're not going to do the job if you're not filling it. Like, yes, it is a selfless job, but at the same time, you got to have job satisfaction from it.
Yes.
Like,
So for me, I and talking to a lot of cops across the United States, a lot of those cops that had that epiphany moment that we talked about earlier, they realized that they had to start filling their cup in a way in which they felt like, hey, I'm fulfilled every single day in what I do. And they all did that through mentorship. 3 kids, 4 kids. I can introduce you to cops right now that pay hundreds of dollars out of their pocket a month to buy kids Jordans and gift cards and this and that because they're not buying the kids. They're
yeah,
building connection and caring about these kids.
yeah,
And so, and that's so much money coming out of a cop's pocket that most cops don't make that much money,
yeah.
right? So here you are, and now you're connecting with kids in the community in which you serve. I'm here to serve you. I'm also here to protect you, but it says serve and protect. You serve 90% of the time, you probably protect about 10% of the time. Would you agree with that
Oh,
statement?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Even
So
even
maybe
less.
even less. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be, right? So here you are, and you're serving your community. And now your community, right? We've already talked about Hey Blue Plate Special, listening to people. What are they saying? They want you to be more empathetic. They want you to be more resourceful. So that's what your role is becoming. Here you are, you're building connection in the community, you're using empathy, you have resources available. Now, start becoming a mentor in your community. Start pushing that forward, getting to know the kids, serving them. Because when you do, you're going to feel so fulfilled. That's what all of these officers are saying. And if it can happen for one officer, it can happen for all of them. Now imagine if a police department said, you know what, starting from 2024 on, every single rookie class, when they come on, they have to pick a mentor to, they have to be a mentor to a child in their community. Thinking of all the positives. I can't honestly think of any negatives, but, and maybe your viewers, I'll task your viewers when they listen right now, tell us some of the negatives that you think. But I don't see any, right? Because literally you give your mentor for 4 hours a month. 4 hours, that's it. So imagine now, in my opinion, that we have all of these officers rolling into mentorship programs. And now here we are as Hey Blue, you can earmark your donation of points for your little that you mentor. And that goes through the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Bigs with Badges program. So now we're literally able to show the impact that you have had in one person, numerous people's lives. So now imagine, and if you go on heyblue.app, which is what the beta test site is and stuff, you'll see that you'll like as we start building it up, right? So right now, and I know it only says 56, but
If you're
we're
listening,
actually
we are showing the Hey Blue app right now.
yes. So we're showing heyblue.app right now. It says that there's 56 positive social interactions when it's actually over 556. Um, but if where it would bring you right now, if you hit continue, is that it would bring you to just a sign up page, right? So, and in that sign up page, like what you would sit there and if you created an account, it asks you, are you a community member or are you a police officer, right? So you would be obviously a police officer. You would use your police email, all that kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
And then imagine that now we made it so that you're able to be located. Okay. Now that you being located is something that you control. Super, super important. It is not controlled by anybody else. It is literally controlled by you, the officer, on when you want to be located or not. And we
Okay.
actually put in other fail safes, like you can only be located for 15 minutes. After every 15 minutes, it automatically shuts off. So that if in all the hustle and bustle of all these people trying to say hello to you, you get sidetracked and say, "Oh, I forgot to turn it off, and now I'm going home." It will automatically shut off. It will not. You will not be geolocated anywhere other than when you want to.
Okay.
Um, but now imagine that here you are and you make yourself available. So here are your NCOs, like you said. They're at an event. They make themselves available. All these people come in. They all say hello, and then everybody gets their points for what they need. And now they go and buy whatever they need to buy. And now me, I show my ability that I gave all of my points to a particular child or a particular not-for-profit in my community. Now check this out. How important do you think it would be, Eric? And this is, I'm interviewing you now. I'm asking you that if you went out and created a profile, used it for a year, and I clicked on you and it said, Eric has had 27,000 positive connections with members in his community over the past year.
I
Do
think
you
it'd be a
think that
new I think that'd be a new way to evaluate how my officers are doing.
absolutely? Do you think that your community that you serve would value connection over the amount of arrests or summonses that you've written in a year?
Oh, hell yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. They'd value the connections more than the arrests.
Absolutely. And not only that, but now your community is able to see you. They're
Yeah.
able to see like what you've been able to do and who you've been able to connect with.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish we preloaded it. I'm sorry. I should have preloaded it my information in it so I could have showed you and walked you through it. I
Oh, yeah.
apologize.
No
Like, so I
worries.
could have showed you, but I know it says there's only 56 on there. But so imagine right now, all the officers that have agreed to beta test it, um, and all the events that I do, when we hit 100 connections, it automatically shoots a $500 donation from Hey Blue to Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Florida, the Bigs with Badges program, because that's where we
Okay.
are locally. But imagine now that a police department can do that and say, "Hey, we want we want to help this particular not-for-profit, Habitat for Humanity or something, whatever, with the homeless or whatever it is that's local in their community." And they say, "John, we want our officers to work towards this particular goal." Well, we could swing that in there and say, "Heck yeah, let's set up those parameters, and then we can make it so that your officers, once they hit this goal, a donation will be made to that charity on your department's behalf."
Okay.
So, what do you think?
I like it. I'm actually I just filled out the thing, but it won't let me sign up.
It won't. Uh-oh. We're in.
Yeah.
What is it saying?
It says your
Uh,
email must be a .org or .gov. Mine
oh,
is a
is
dot
it?
it is a .gov.
And it's not letting it?
It's not letting me in.
Okay. I will. I'm surprised at that, by the way.
Yeah, I figured we could show it off.
I'm
But
sorry.
oh, that's okay.
Let
It's
me.
being beta
I
tested. Maybe you've
I
hit
don't
your
want to.
capacity.
I don't want to zip out of this. I'm in the full screen here, but I can probably, if I go on, I can probably fix it. Um, so you're a .gov.
Yeah. I'll edit this part later so people don't see my personal info.
All right, how about this? How about I let you if you can edit this out, then I'll give you my sign in so you can see what it looks like. Is that cool?
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Let me
So
let's
so
try.
go to info
And,
at okay, so that's obviously a picture of me at 9/11. And then you see it says welcome Officer John, right?
right,
So it's asking for your location. So like if it asks you for your location, you say, on this you allow it to, right? When
right,
it popped up. But here, like right now, it's automatically it's off. Remember, this is the beta, right? So like
right.
it's showing you that where you are, but once you click on it, it'll geolocate you down. Okay, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give you another thing to sign into in another. If you want to open up another thing,
Okay.
right? Go to heyblue.app. Or you looked up Tommy Norman, right? Pretty cool,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was looking them up while you're talking about them. See
So
if I
if it
recognize them.
so if you hit continue and your Gmail email, you want to write
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
will.
All right. So this is one of the educators in our school. Okay. So his name is Ethan. Pretty cool dude. Right. So now if you hit continue, okay, you can see that his location is on. As you can see also, if you click back to the officer one, what do they both have in common?
Oh wait.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, did
it
it?
it
Oh,
multi-signed. It
okay.
won't let you
So
have
maybe
both.
maybe we do it from your phone. How about that? You have your phone on you?
No, no, no. I'll do it from Microsoft Edge. It shouldn't translate over, I would think. So let me go to.
So now,
There we go.
so Ethan has been geolocated, right?
Right,
And now there you are, your Officer John, right? So now you want to turn on your location on there, right? Now, as you can see, the clock has started. You see, it says we'll shut off at X amount of time. Do you see that?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Now, let's just say, for an argument's sake, you're an officer that does not want to be geolocated, but you want to be able to do points, right?
Right.
So you would go back to Officer John and you would click my QR. Okay. And when you do that, anyone that's on the platform that clicks on your QR code would be able to get points as well doing that. Okay. If they're signed up. If they're not signed up, then it would just take them to a sign up page and ask them to sign up.
Okay.
So there's numerous ways in which, because I understand being an officer, I understand what it means to be geolocated. And so that's why we put all these security measures in place. Okay.
Okay. So they could use the QR code in lieu of being tracked.
Absolutely.
Shoot, you could
100%.
get I don't have my wallet in here with me. I have a one of those NFC cards.
Yeah, I have one too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I use it for the podcast stuff, and that would be a cool thing to have as an officer too. You just, hey, scan my card.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
for, and we also, because we have to think about people that don't have phones, right? And what we would do too. So that's also any officer at the police department that wants to sign up to do it. We would send them, at least in the initial beta tests, like business cards to be able to hand out that has the QR code on it as well.
Okay.
So, but so here's Ethan, right? So Ethan, if you go to the search button, which is on the bottom with the the micro, yeah, that,
Okay.
right. See, it says there's one local officer nearby, right? So it's geolocating where you are on the bottom. If you click on where it says Officer John to your left, right there, okay, it tells you who Officer John is, right? Local
Okay.
PD officer. Obviously we can explain more. We can put who you work for, how many points that they have, but ultimately who they're working for. So they're working for the Boys and Girls Club of Central Florida, right? Officer John is
Right.
working for. So you would click on that, on the big Hey Blue sign in the middle, right? Right. And now it shows that you guys had a connection. It also says that connection, it gives you a little blurb about connection, somebody famous that said it, right? And
Yeah.
now you go back now to Officer John, right? Now
This
that's
one?
no, the other one.
Oh, oh, yeah, yeah. Where did it go? There it goes.
Right. So now see, it says your community is saying, "Hey, Blue." Simply respond by tapping, and so you tap that, right? Hit that,
Okay.
and now your community saying, now that screen looks the same, right? Now you both earned a point.
I can
So
hear it
you,
clapping in the
yeah,
background.
it's yeah. There's actually we actually have later versions where confetti falls and all this kind of stuff, right? But then
Okay.
you hit continue in the middle, continue. Now this is super important. It asks the officer and both the community member, do you want to share that positive connection that you just had on social media?
Oh, okay.
Now, here's the deal. It's not your social media. It's not the department's social media. It's Hey Blue social media. So now
Oh, okay.
so your department can't say, hey, you're posting on our social media or blah, blah, blah. You're
Yeah.
posting on Hey Blue social media. It's 100% positive.
Yeah.
It's you guys had a positive connection. It was 1 point that was awarded. And when you hit post now, right? Also, for the officer's security, do you see it says post now, post in 5 minutes, or post in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
That's because it's telling people that there was a positive interaction that happened on a particular specific area. This is where it
Okay.
happened. Now, you hit checkpoints, and now you see we're at 61, right? 61 connections made.
Yeah.
Told go to 100. When we hit the 100, that's when a $500 donation would go to Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Florida Bigs with Badges program.
Oh, so now you're giving the officers even more of an incentive as well because they know that that's what their work has accomplished.
Correct.
That's pretty smart, bro. I like
So
how like it's very intuitive. Like I knew right away I needed to click that big police button thing. You know what I mean? Like I was like, all right, it's pretty cop proof. I just figured I need to click this thing. So you
and then if you go to, like, if you hit OK now,
okay?
right? So now it says transaction history. You see that right in the middle. So now, what does it show? It shows how many points you have available and how many points that the officer has donated to already, right? So I've
Yeah.
donated 29 points to different not-for-profits or entities. But if you look at it, I can, as Officer John, I donated to big, Boys and Girls Club, or I could select a beneficiary, and it's a preloaded set of beneficiaries.
Okay.
So, and that's to show you that you see on top it says Jane.
Yeah.
Jane is a child that's in the Big Brothers Big Sisters Bigs with Badges program. So if you selected Jane and then you donated, it would be specifically earmarked for Jane through Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Oh. So now you're giving officers the opportunity to make things local
Correct.
instead of generic, Boys and Girls Club of the United States or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm tracking.
Right. And
Very
then now
cool.
if you hit back, right? Oh, I'm sorry. We should have donated that point. So go back
Oh,
into
okay.
transaction history. Let's donate that point, right? And now
Okay.
confirm donation. It went to the Boys and Girls Club of Central Florida. Confirm donation. Boom. That's it. Thank you for your donation. And that's it. We're back to now. One thing I want to point out too is if you hit the search button that's next to the cop button, right? Okay, these are, it's important that he sees all of the positive connections that have happened, right? So if you hit Ethan right now, see where where to go? It moved it. Yeah. Do you see? It's literally showing you who I had a connection with.
Yeah. I
There's
like that it's not
nothing,
showing my actual address right now. It's like one
right,
that's across the street or something. So
right.
less editing
So,
later.
right, but also think of this. We also loaded it so that I don't show it here. I can't show it in the app. It's on the back end. But after every week or month or whatever your department wants to, or you personally want to share, the information about your connections that you've made, we could do it centralized to an officer or centralized to an entire department,
Uh-huh.
automatically gets notified to any local media sources,
Oh, very cool.
so that this way it cannot be disputed.
Yeah.
These were positive connections that were had in the communities in which we serve. And here is the proof, literally
Yeah.
right here.
And you're not fudging the numbers because it
No,
takes two control points.
correct.
Takes the
There's no
officer
way
and it
for,
takes the citizen.
and here's the deal. You're only allowed to have one positive connection with an officer per 24 hours.
Oh, really?
So you can't stand in front of an officer and say point, it won't work. It
Okay.
won't allow you to do that.
I gotcha.
And you have to be within a certain proximity of the police officer to have that positive connection.
Right.
If you're not
But
in the
but
proximity, it won't
police can
work.
have multiple.
Police can, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a police officer can have as many as they can in a day,
Right.
but the public can only have one per 24 hours.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay.
So,
Very
and then
cool.
this is the reasons why everything was created, how the eco school plays in, why this is the solution, the fact that we were We were supported and entered into something called unbundled policing through Solve MIT and Stand Together Labs. This was all talks about my journey as a police officer and what I've done, um, so that people understand that this is not for me. Like this is this has I don't make any money off of this. I don't like we're 100% not for profit. Like this is not for me.
Yeah.
This is for this is honestly this is not for John now. This is for John when he was a cop and he understood all of those connections that he made. He understands that there are officers out there making tons of connections right now and that they are impactful in their community, but that nobody knows about it
Yeah.
and that they should know about it. You know, but it has to be done in a way in which it's comfortable with the community using it.
Hmm.
Because, like, I don't know if you heard of what happened in Chicago with PCIs. Have you heard of that before?
No.
So basically, the mayor and the superintendent there said, "Hey, we want to do this initiative. We're gonna task all of our 11,900 police officers with having 1 million positive interactions with the communities that they serve." Okay, and they said to the officers, "Go, get out there, get into the community. I want you, walking old ladies home and crossing the street, holding bags for people, changing tires, blah blah blah." And they started doing that. And then the way I read it was um, the I think it's the district attorney or the state district attorney came down and said, "You cannot do this." And they said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, number one, you just put a quota on all of your cops, right? We don't believe in quotas. You can't do that. You can't say, I need 1 million of anything, right? But number two, there's no true way to record how this is happening. You're all sitting there and it's not really happening in the right way. And nobody's filling out the paperwork the right way and blah, 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 and this and that." And then they went and they spoke with a local community leader, a local activist. The local activist says, "Yeah, the last thing that we need in our over policed areas are police further forcing their way into the community." So that's obviously their opinion, right? And valid, but also other people would say, "Well, we're just trying to do what we can to help," right? So you say, okay, so that into account, we say, well, this is all community driven. Hey Blue is 100% community driven. An officer cannot walk up to you and find you to have a positive connection. It can only happen if a community member finds the officer to have a positive connection. That's it. And that's because we want to empower the community to
Yeah.
come around we think of it as a giant wheel. Okay? Giant wheel where everybody has a spoke in the wheel. Police officers, police departments would say, we're the hub of the wheel. There's some people that would disagree with that statement. I happen to believe that when you walk into a community, even if I don't belong in that community, I am responsible for the safety of everyone in that community just as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
I have two eyes, two ears, one mouth, and a brain. And that sends information to let police officers or anyone else know what's going on in my community. Okay? If a community is truly a working community, everybody is working together to keep each other safe. We're all an equal spoke on the wheel. Okay? Now, does everybody sit there and put their life on the line for other people in their community? No, they don't. Right. And I understand why, obviously, being a police officer, we would feel like, hey, man, like I put my life on the line. I should be the center spot, the hub. But In a life of service, right? And you tell me if you agree with this. In a life of service, everybody's a spoke, and the community
Oh yeah,
itself is the wheel.
for sure, for sure. I don't I don't see how you could argue that.
Well, I'm sure there will be an argument, and that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine. We can agree to disagree. I'm cool with that. But it's just my perspective, my opinion. So to me, Hey Blue, it's super important that community members know that this is powered by them. This is empowering them to walk up to an officer that is making themselves available because they want to connect,
yeah,
because that officer understands the value of connection, the many positive things that connection does for their own mental state and for the the value proposition of their community.
yeah. And now, if let's say Officer Snuffy, gets 27,000 positive contacts in a year, whatever it is, and he gets into a bad use of force. It doesn't look good on video, but he, his report shows that he did what he had to do. And instead of just going by numbers of like, well, this guy's got 700 arrests this year, like he's obviously heavy handed. No, look, he's got 27,000 positive contacts. That is a number that's not controlled by the police. It's a number controlled by the community.
Yep.
So having those comparisons, I think, would speak volumes for that officer's character. And it may not get him necessarily off. That's not what I mean. I don't think it's going to get him off, but it's definitely going to weigh in when it comes to decision making from the community's, outreach or whoever it is, when they look at that and they say, well, this dude's been doing what we want him to do all this time.
Hmm.
Look at his numbers, especially if you have an understanding of how Hey Blue works.
Hmm.
And on top of that, like I read his report. I tend to trust what he's saying a lot more now because like he's out there doing exactly what we would expect.
It's an additional layer for people to look at to show the context of a person, right? Like
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm out here. I'm working for kids in my community. I'm working for the not-for-profits in my community. It's not. This is not a. Um, this is not propaganda. This is
Right.
not. This is not a like a photo moment, right? This is
Right.
not some BS photo op. This is literally me working for my community, and here is the numbers to prove it. And you say, well, it's a hello. It's my personal experience. I think you'll agree with me that anything that builds connection always starts with a hello. Hey man, how you doing? Hey, how's everything going? And then one day it's a hello. Next day I'm learning about your family. The next day I'm learning about your job. The next day I'm learning about what team you like. The next day I'm making fun of you for the team that you like. The
Yeah.
next day, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
now we're building a relationship, right? That's
Yeah.
how it always worked with me being on the streets. I don't know about you. I think you could agree with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's what all of the cops that I met throughout my career, and I worked in so many different precincts, and talking with them and listening to them talk to the community, they all did it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And it always worked. It always worked. One of the things I did, um, so we've been doing this for a while now. Okay. We've been at this for a while, trying to build Hey Blue, getting all of the impact and the comments from the community, from police departments, right? So one thing we did, we took it to a bunch of high schoolers, and they were all high schoolers, young men and women of color. And I said, "Would you use this?" And there was at the time there was seven kids that we spoke to. Five of them said, "Yeah, I would give that a shot. I would say hello to an officer." Two were like, heck no, no shot, no way. I said, okay. And I said, well, the five that would say hello, would you share that you said hello? And they're like, yeah, it's no big deal. Like, yeah, I would share that. Okay. And I said, if you got points, what would you redeem your points for? And one kid was like, oh, I'd get new Jordans. I would want the freshest Jordans. And one kid was like, I want the new Call of Duty game. I was like, all right. And one kid said, yeah, I don't want none of that. I said, what would you want? He said, I want respect. And I said, okay. And he's like, and I think that just by starting to say hello, that's how it'd be one step closer to getting respect. I said, absolutely. I happen to agree with you. And then one other kid said, in thinking about it, I wouldn't get Call of Duty. I wouldn't get new Jordans. He's like, I would use those points to feed my family. And I said, bet. Absolutely. And he said, well, you know what? Yeah, I would definitely do that. And then the other kids that said definitely not, I would never use it. I would never say hello. They were like, well, wait a minute. You'd be using it to get video games. You'd be using it to feed your family. They're like, well, how do I know that that officer's safe? I said, well, what would a safe officer look like to you? And they said, well, if an officer has done this a lot. I said, so if an officer had like 27,000 positive connections with kids, would you be more willing to walk up to one? He'd be like, yeah. I was like, and what would you use your points for? He's like, well, my mom just had a baby. So I'd probably help her out with diapers. And I'm like, and that is change.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I'm talking about. From a simple hello. Yeah, people got Jordans, people got whatever, right? But as we said earlier in the broadcast, I got police officers that are running around as mentors that are spending hundreds of dollars out of their pockets to get Jordans for kids.
Yeah.
So, so okay, that's going to happen. But you know what else is going to happen? We're going to help feed a family. We're going to help get diapers for kids. And to me, the sky's the limit on that. And
Yeah.
think about how now those kids are now going to start interacting with those officers.
Yeah. Does uh is it going to be an actual like iPhone app or
It's
is
right now. We're working to get there. Yeah.
okay.
So it is my. We are also working with community members to find out what's the best way to get it in the hands of as many community members as possible.
I
Right.
think the app is the biggest. That would be the biggest game changer. And then what would be cool is like let's say you get a pilot department and they put out, their own announcement like, through social media obviously and local media if they have it
Mhm.
willing to cover it like, hey, this is a new community outreach thing that we're going to be doing. We would love for y'all to go out, get this app. It's an accountability thing. It's a this, it's a that. Well, however you need to spin it, not necessarily to sell them on it, but just to show, hey, this is one more tool that we're going to try to use to show y'all good faith and that we're trying to do our best to reach the community. So, um, yeah, man, if you get that app up and going, I think you guys will fly off the shelf.
So I think right now why it's we call it scaffolding, right? Going into a community and bringing Hey Blue to it. We feel that the community needs to see that the police department or the officers themselves are willing to put themselves out there to do that. Okay? That's super hard in and of itself, right?
Yeah,
Because even if you have a willing officer, that willing officer has to be the one to go out and physically say, against whatever ribbing they're going to get from their officers. And hey, we could talk about that cop culture. That's another 3 hours,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But basically, to go out and say, I'm willing to be the one that is out here trying to connect with the community. right? And then we say, okay, well, come on, officer, let's go. Let's grab a local community member. Let's go into that pre-K classroom. We'll start there. We'll do a story time. And then after that, we'll set up a Hey Blue Plate special. We'll sit down, and you, the officer, with the chief, will sit down at that table with local community members, and we'll start talking about what's going on and solutions. And then those same people that are sitting at that table, we're going to invite them back into a design thinking session. Excuse me, a couple of them, about what Hey Blue is and why it was created, and what do you see the pros and the cons are, and how do we work through that so that we already have your buy-in before it even hits the streets, and so that it's not Hey Blue, and it's certainly not the police department that's saying we're doing this. It's the community that says we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're a local community leader. We believe in this. We're doing this because we find the value in it. Please help us. Go to their social media, and they're the ones that are saying, "Let's go. Let's run with this. Let's identify these officers. Let's have them at events. Let's get people talking to them and interacting them with them and having these positive interactions with them." We just did a small beta test yesterday on an event that we had, and it was just we were asked to be our school, the Verdi Eco School, was asked to be at an anti-bullying rally, and we were there. And I propped open the computer and said, "Hey, man, help us beta test, the Hey Blue app." And people were coming over, they were interacting with it, they would tell me the pros and cons. And at the end, we gave away a $50 gift card to one random person who participated. And you know what? Everybody loved it. They said they see the merits in it. They want to bring it off. It's just, in this concept, there's a lot of heavy lifting. It's getting a municipality ultimately involved, right?
Yeah.
It's getting Walmart and Target and all these big corporations involved. And you know what? We'll get there. Not even worried about getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time. And to all the officers that are listening today, if beta testing is something that you'd be interested in, please reach out to Eric. And if you want Hey Blue to come to your community, please reach out to Eric. You can reach out to me at verdiecoschool.org. Hey Blue, there's contact information there. We're actually going on October 18th. We're going to Atlanta, and we're going to be doing a story time in Atlanta and trying to raise the awareness about what Hey Blue is there. Like we're going all across the United States. There's not a place that we won't go, but we're a not for profit, right? So we have to be able to raise the money to get there.
Yeah.
So that's the only issue, right? Like I can't personally fund all this stuff. So
I know
that's the
your
hardest
pain,
part.
brother. I know your
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's well, what's going to be cool about this podcast is the fact that one, we didn't do sound clips. We had a full discussion. So anybody that wants to really dive in and figure this out and what it's about, they're going to be able to get that from this, audio and visual, because we took the time to log in and show everybody exactly and break it all down. And I think that's going to get more buy-in from cops, especially
yeah.
on that. So, because once you get the cops going, that's going to be your salesman right there in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you right now that Storytime and Hey Blue has been sponsored by Panasonic Toughbook. So they see ultimately as Hey Blue being downloaded onto every tough device that's in the police departments. I can tell you that we are backed by South State Bank. They came on as a sponsor. I tell you that we have a tremendous amount of local sponsors who see this as a win-win for them. Imagine a place like we have a local barbecue place. It's called Charlie and Jake's, right? So Charlie and Jake's has Hey Blue stuff all over the place, right? And so they're like, hey, man, for us, we're seen as facilitators of positive connection between police and the community. Like for us, that's a win. And then now, all those people, even if we gave everybody 10% off and they walked into our store, like if 10 Hey Blue points meant 10% off their check, they're still coming in the door. They're still spending money. It's like handing them a card or whatever it is. Like to them, to be seen as a facilitator of positive connections, to them, that's something that they value.
Yeah.
And so think about, I mean, any business, any corporation, anything that is like, yeah, man, like we see that the message isn't about, it's not about like pro policing. It's about people coming together, right? It's about that hello, that, hey, man, we want a community that comes together, that is connected, is a stronger community, it's a safer community, it's a better community for all of us.
Yeah.
And I'll leave you with this. Well, I don't want to leave you, but I'm just saying I want
Right.
to point this out. Famous gentleman, his name is Daryl Davis. Have you ever heard that name before?
Mm-mm.
I ask everybody to look up Daryl Davis. Daryl Davis is a famous musician who's a man of color. I should say he's a man of color who is a famous musician. And he he wanted to know why people could possibly hate him as a man of color. So he started going to KKK rallies.
Oh, yes. I know who he is.
So you heard
Yes.
of him,
Yes,
right?
I've heard of him. Yeah, yeah.
Here's a man who has sat down with people that hate him beyond anything and has gotten for them to see him as a human being and gotten them to take the hatred out of their life, right?
Right.
So much so that they've given their KKK robes into him and saying, I'm no longer part of the KKK. And what he said when I watched this TED talk really resonated with me. He said, we can send a man to the moon, and from the moon, he can say that this was one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. We can hear that communication. We can make that communication happen, but we cannot communicate with our next door neighbor. What's going to get everybody to start coming together?
Yeah. It's sad that it always takes a tragic event for that shit to happen.
It happened at 9/11. People started coming together. Nobody even gave it a second bat of an eye. Everybody rallied, started coming together, right? And now, here, even look at George Floyd. You literally had the world come together and protest police brutality. The
Yeah.
world. There were George Floyd protests all around the world. You had never had you seen before cops kneeling, people kneeling all over the place, you know? And so now that these things have happened, if it only takes a hello, 5 letters, hello, for you to just get to know somebody. I understand you might not agree with everything. I get it. You don't agree with their political stance. You don't agree with the way they do whatever it is that they do. But like Daryl Davis said, can we at least respect the fact that we're both human? That we both are on this earth, we're both human, and at the end of the day, my father, Vietnam veteran, my grandfather, Army veteran, from World War II, right? They both fought for everybody to have the right to free speech, the right to have an opinion. You don't have to agree with the opinion. I don't agree with the opinion, but I can agree to disagree. And I think that's where we all have to get to.
Yeah.
And it all starts with a hello.
I want to show you something. We were kind of discussing how cops are, the ribbing and all that stuff. We're our biggest enemies sometimes when it comes to things. Um, One of the reasons I've been pushing the podcast so hard lately, not lately, but over the past year, is I have not gotten that response from fellow officers. It's always been supportive. And I just got this, and I don't know if it's going to show up readable on here, but can you read that from what you're looking at, or is
I
it too
can't.
little?
It's too far, and I
Okay,
don't
so
have my
I'll
glasses on to be honest with you. My
yeah,
old age is showing.
well, just looking at it on the thing. Oh, there it
That's a little
goes.
better.
There we
Okay,
go.
I can read it. It
Um,
says, "You guys taught us in the academy to get to know our community. I specifically remember you, Eric, telling us to get out of the car and to talk to people and get to know them. I have always carried that mindset with me ever since. I've been patrolling the area around this guy's business for 2 years now. Over that time, he has become a really good friend and an amazing connection with the community we both serve. I was really proud. No, it was a really proud moment to have a lot of our class come together and support this guy on his birthday, no less. The seeds y'all planted do grow. Just thought you might like to know that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
dude,
100 million percent.
that was like
That's incredible.
it was an emotional. I'm sitting in the living room with my wife, and this text comes across, on Instagram, and I'm like, "What's this from?" I'm like, and I was an instructor at the academy for a few years, and one of my biggest frustrations was, at least at my department and across the nation, from what I notice, is everybody's all about community policing. But tell me, what is community policing? Tell me what it is, because we always tell people, you need to be community police oriented, but nobody's sitting down and explaining what that is. And I don't think it's any one thing specifically, but you got to start teaching officers really early, give them ideas of what community policing is to you. So that was one of the things that I kept trying to push out there. I'm like, look, you guys got to get out of the damn car. Like, just like you said, start with hello. I didn't
Mhm.
specifically say that, but that was the premise. That's the idea. You got to get out there and you just got to start talking to people, and not force it. Don't be disgenuine. But man, like I said, we're dancing around, how cops are just kind of the biggest naysayers about when other cops try to do good things. But I will say, and this is why I keep preaching, that I think where I work is one of the best community policing leaders out there. Is like, this is a response I get from not just from new officers, from seasoned cops that have been
Mhm.
around longer than me. They're like, dude, when can I get on the podcast? I want to share some stuff. I want to talk about it. I'm like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to you talk this whole time and watching. If you're listening, guys, I know not everybody's got 2.5 3 hours to sit and watch a YouTube video, but you have to see the passion behind John's voice. Like,
Oh,
it's not just saying it. Like, I can read the emotion on his face. Like, he is all into everything he's been talking about, and that's what I like. I like the passion, the drive for things. Anybody that's passionate about something, it's going to be good.
thank you, man. I
So
appreciate you for saying that, man.
yeah,
Big
brother.
time. I
So
uh I got I don't know how we are on time, but
I got all
I
day,
got
baby.
cool. So I want to tell you about this story too. So when we started working with the local police department, they invited me, you know, to them I'm an outsider. I'm sitting there and I'm saying to, hey, I'm a retired cop, blah blah blah, and they're like, bro, we don't need no help. We know we got community policing down, blah blah blah. I was like, all right. So they invited me to this event that they had where they went to this local church. Every year they go to this church, and the church brings all the parents, the young kids, and the cops bring the motorcycle and the cop car and the police dog, all that kind of stuff, right? So here I am, and I come walking up, and I'm just sitting back in the cut, and I'm just watching. Kids, there's a huge line, and kids want to jump on the motorcycle. They want to put the sirens on, and they want to get into the cop car, and they want to put the sirens and the lights on.
I
They want
brought
to
you
sit
out
in
here
the
today to
back.
show you.
Although really, nobody ever wants to sit in the back, right? It's so
Right.
uncomfortable, right? And so here they are, and they're doing this. And I pulled a woman aside, and I said, "Hey, ma'am, how are you?" And she's like, "I'm good." And I said, "What do you think about the event?" And she's like, "It's all right, I guess." And I said, she goes, "It's more for the kids than anything." And I said, "Well, okay." And she said, it's just, how many times can you take some BS picture on a motorcycle with a cop?"
Yeah.
And I laughed and I said, "Okay, well, what would you like to see?" And she said, and she looked at them and she saw that. So you have a motorcycle, you have the cop car. So there was a cop with each, right? And there was four cops standing off to the side, and they were all just like huddled up, talking to each other. And she's like, "I mean, this is like a community policing thing, right?" And I said, "You tell me." And she said, "Well, if it is, Why are four cops just huddled up talking with each other? She said, if it's a community policing thing, why are they not talking to us? I said, that's a great question. May I ask you a follow up? And she said, sure. I said, what do you want them to say to you? And she sat there and she looked at me and she's like, I guess I would want them to come up to me and ask me if I'm okay. And I said, hell yeah. She said, I would want them to come to me and ask me if I'm okay and if there's anything that they can do for me. And I said, well, I'm standing here right now. Is there something that they can do for you? And she said, no, there's nothing they can do for me, but it'd be nice if they asked because it would actually show that they cared.
Yeah.
And I said, hell yeah. So then after that, at that time, they bring the canine dog and they're doing the exercises with the canine dog. And I see her watching and I'm standing off to the side and she came walking back over and she goes, I got another thing. I said,
You
yeah,
got her
ma'am.
going.
I said, I'm all ears. And she said, how y'all gonna bring a dog here that nobody can pet? She goes, that dog is gonna rip somebody's arm off. She said, you're gonna bring a dog here? What are we supposed to do? It caught a rolled up
Yeah.
towel. Big deal. She said, you want to really do something? Get a dog and bring it here so the kids can pet the dang dog.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am. I
That's more
appreciate
the
you.
bomb dog. Bring the bomb dog.
Right. Well, even still, they won't let them touch the bomb dog for whatever reason. But
Oh,
I said,
really?
okay.
Oh, our bomb dog, they can.
I said, okay. So now here I am. And afterwards, after the event, I sat down and I said to them, I said, hey, officers, I just want to let you know this is the feedback that I got. They're just people that just want to complain. They're just complaining. And I said, so you feel that you're doing the job to the best of your ability? And they said, yeah. Okay. And that there is what we need to fix.
That's one of the wedges.
That's cop culture right there.
Yeah.
And that's also about trying to find ways to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
I could say hello to anybody in any room. You could be anyone. I don't care. I'll walk up to you and I'll say hello. I might feel uncomfortable, but I'll say hello. But you know what? You have to be okay with that. You have to get to that point. As an officer, I really feel that's the best thing that you can do. Mm-hmm. And you know what? And I also, my opinion that in the police academy, instructors, we should be teaching these new officers how to network because they don't know how to do that. Take somebody that's a business professional, a professional at networking, put them into an academy class and start talking to all these recruits about how to network what you're doing. You are wearing a brand, whether it's the NYPD or whatever police department you're with, you are wearing a brand. And when you walk out there, you are a customer service representative for that brand, whether you like it or not. You're getting, and that's why they shut down social media and all this, because you're either helping their brand or you're tarnishing their brand. If you're there complaining, obviously you're tarnishing their brand. If you're there showing the positive that goes on, you're helping their brand, but they're scared. They're shell-shocked just as much as you are. But what are you going to possibly say or do that's going to make me, as a police chief, have to stay up all night trying to fix the words that you said?
Yep.
If cops went about it that way and said, I'm a customer service representative with a gun, and I know that's horrible. I would hate to be branded and classified as that, but going out there and thinking about it like that and going out there to network, if you're networking as a police officer, my God, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, absolutely. I've taken full advantage in my networking. My wife hates how social I am.
Mine does too.
Because we'll be somewhere and I just see some, like, you're in a spot where I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna go talk to this guy, see what he's about. I don't I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have fun. I love stories. So talk to somebody, you never know what the hell you're gonna find out.
Yeah,
I'm
my wife
I
hates
drive
them.
other officers crazy because we'll be on a call that's just about wrapped up, and then I'll go over to the demint that wants to spout off about they need tinfoil and all that for the
Yeah,
radio waves. I'll just be like, so where'd you come from, man? Like, how'd you get
yeah.
started? Like, I find it interesting because most of the time they can tell you things about themselves.
And that also makes it fun for your day, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And it's
I
not at anybody's expense. I don't want you to hear it and think that I'm making an entertainment out
fun.
of
Yeah,
at someone's expense. No, it's genuinely satisfying to me. I get to know some things. Like there's this person that goes around our downtown area that was homeless, and they called her the goat lady because she generally had like a big goatee.
right,
And
right.
and I get to talking to her, and she's like, "Well, I used to be a bodybuilder, a weightlifter." I was like, "Oh shit!" And we looked her up. She was a like national champion weightlifter.
Really,
Yeah, and then got
that's
into
so
dope.
cool.
Yeah, got into dope real bad, and obviously that came with some mental health challenges with that, and that's the boat she was in.
Yeah,
She had family and stuff she could lean on, but she said she wasn't ready to get clean, and that's just how she was living her life. And you got to want to change that stuff before it's going to start changing. But yeah, man, that's
yeah.
how I got to, you get to hear these stories and check them out. I had another guy, same thing. Um, I went and got him a job. I like got him I found out that he knew how to weld. Welding is a very rare skill. So
Very lucrative.
I went to this recycle place, metal recycling shop, and I said, "Hey, I got a homeless guy. He says he can weld. Can you give him a shot? Give him a week, see if he can." Because all they did was break stuff down and break welds and whatnot. They weren't really welding anything together. And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And it would have been like a $20-something an hour job, which was
Right.
that's pretty good.
Sure.
Um, so I go back to this guy, the homeless guy, and I tell him, I was like, "Hey, dude, I got you lined up a job." I was like, "They can utilize your skills at welding. You said you liked to weld." He goes, "I appreciate it, but I gotta decline." I said, "Why, man?" He's like, "Because I can't get clean." He's like, "And all that's gonna happen is I'm gonna ruin the relationship between you and that guy who did a solid for you." And he's like, "Because I'm gonna go buy and use and ruin that job." He's like, I don't want to do that." I was like, "Okay, shit." So I had to go call the guy. I'm like,
Yeah, but you know what? Think of the honesty in that. Think of the
"Yeah,
connection
yeah,
in that, and
yeah,
like, hey, thank you for. Like, he's like, wow, this dude just went out and got me a job, and he's being as honest as possible, and you're respecting that. And now, next time you're on the street and you see him,
yeah,
hey, like, I'm sure you remember his first name, and you're like, hey, dude, like,
yeah, yeah,
instead of running and screaming like, police don't move, it's, Jimmy, what are you doing?
yeah,
Like, or come over here, or what? So that's it's not as adversarial, right?
yeah, yeah." When he was sober, nicest guy ever. But when he was
Yeah,
high, man,
great.
and dude, he was probably in his, I think he was in his mid 50s the last time I saw him,
Mhm.
and we called him the street, the street workout because he'd have a plastic bags filled with rocks or whatever he could find heavy. He'd just be walking down the
Working
street
out.
curling, lifting them up. We'd see him doing pull ups on whatever he could do. Always jacked. He
Yeah.
just yoked for a homeless dude. I'm like, "Dude, where you getting your protein?"
Yeah.
I was
Word.
like, I want those abs you got going on." He's like, "Oh man." I was like, he's
I
like,
think
"Well,
those
I got
abs are more from not
yeah,
eating, though, right?
yeah, yeah."
Like,
He's always said that he had to stay healthier than most because of his habit. I was like,
sure,
"Okay, guess
I
you're
hear that.
balancing that out, bud." But yeah, yep. So
Yeah, and then to circle back to community policing, I just wanted to point this out. Like, community policing started in the '70s.
yep. After
So
professional
basically,
policing,
so basically, we've been at this for 50 years. So why are we at this point right now? Like, if community policing was really being pushed and supported, and like departments really 100% buying into it, it should have taken a lot less than 50 years.
Yeah. Now,
And so here we are, and we're just like, you know, um, we're gonna. You'll talk about the 21st century policing that was brought on by
Obama's
Obama,
minister.
right?
Yep.
And that was he's like, hey, listen, man, community policing is the answer. Community policing. Okay, well, where were we? Where did we get to that point where here you are and you're creating this, you know, this actual like strategy, right? Because community policing was the strategy. Now his 21st century policing and the strategy, which is basically bringing everybody back to community policing. And then how do we get to community policing 2022? Everybody's doing everything through tech, everything driven through, non in person communication, right? Everything is
Hmm.
done through a phone where nobody has to give a crap about anybody and everybody's a keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
Well, then how do we bring it back now to that in person, one on one? I'm not an avatar, I'm a real person
Yeah.
type deal. So, like, it's crazy to me when I started researching it, like, when actually community policing started, and that how hard we have to work now in 2022, 50 years later, to even start to get it right. And
Yeah.
then who would be the model that you would point to that to show that it's working? Like, I know the NYPD started with NCO program, just like you guys have you call it the NPO.
NPO, neighborhood
Yeah,
patrol officer.
they
Yep.
have NCO, neighborhood community officer. They were spending. Are you ready for this? They spent over $90 million to make sure that officers would be out on the same corners, the same time of day, from 4:30 to 6:30, blah blah blah, for the sole purpose of connecting with the community. Like,
Jeez.
think about that. Like, that's insane. And yet you have you have all these. You're trying to do all this. You're trying to bring it down to a local centralized type per officer level.
Hmm.
And why did we take 50 years to do that? Right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane to me.
We
And as a
don't
person,
communicate.
as two guys that have been part of it, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, wow, it's insane to us. To the community,
Hmm.
that must be like the promise of all promises that have never been delivered.
Yep. And
And then how could you sit there and build trust with a community that thinks that you're been building trust for 50 years and it hasn't happened?
yeah. One of the biggest problems I see with this, with the community policing mindset in police, one, police don't talk to each other.
Hmm.
That's a big problem, you know. And then on top of not talking to each other, you get a lot of departments that are like, okay, we need to get community police oriented because that's what NYPD is doing. Well, what is the NYPD doing? Oh, they're doing this. Okay, let's do that. Motherfucker, we're in the South.
Yeah.
Like, what
It's
works
totally
up
different.
there ain't going
Does
to
not.
work here.
No. And
So,
especially since they have boots on the ground, right?
right.
Like, they have officers like on street corners everywhere.
Yeah.
And you don't have that in the South.
No.
You
Shoot.
don't everybody's driving around.
Yeah. And where I'm at, like right now, we're going call to call.
Hmm.
We've grown so quick, so fast, we can't keep up with the cops. We don't have enough.
Hmm.
So now you're really going to not see a lot of community policing going on other than your NPOs, which is another thing that I argue. One of the reasons I like NPO, the position, or NCO, whatever you want to call it, I like that idea. But what I don't like what it does to other cops is like, I don't got to do it. That's his job.
Yeah. Right.
So that's
But
kind of,
the NYPD had that for a long time with because it's the NYPD regular patrol units, and then you had the housing units and the transit units. And so, like, everybody, I'm not handling it. That's housing. I'm not handling it. That's transit. And where I worked in the 60 in Coney Island, you had housing projects and transit in the same precinct. And so, I mean, in the same area. So, like, sometimes you knew who was working, and you knew that there was no way that they were going to back you on anything. And then
yeah,
you knew that there was some guys that were really awesome, and they were like, "Yeah, man, we understand that you're on the street and you're handling this, but we're housing and we were nearby and we're swinging by and make sure you're all right." And so, and what does that do? That turns around and says, yeah, man, next time you got a heavy call, we're running too. If there's something that you need help with, we're running too. It's the same exact thing in any community,
Yeah.
in anything that goes on. The people that want to be there, the people that want to help, other people will gravitate towards them, and they'll form a community and they'll help.
Yep.
You have not-for-profits right here in Brevard County, where I am. Something like Keep Brevard Beautiful, right? What do they do? Every weekend they go to a different beach with those little hand picker things and they pick up garbage. And if they're not doing it on the beach, they're doing it on like over by the river. Okay. And so, but these are people that want a better, cleaner, safer community.
Yeah.
And so now, to me, Hey Blue, eventually, I'll lead you into Hey Blue 2.0. Hey Blue 2.0 brings you to, hey, now we're finding all of these people that are having positive connections. We're also finding that they volunteer a lot of time in their community, or that they did this or they did that in their community. And those accolades funnel into Hey Blue. So that Hey Blue knows, right, that, as you saw earlier with Ethan, right? Well, Ethan has given 1,000 hours back to his community to help beautify his community, do this or do that. So now, when you go pull Ethan over and you see that he's on the Hey Blue platform, and you start, hey man, I'm pulling you over because you made a mistake, license, registration, insurance, whatever it is, right? Oh, you're on the Hey Blue platform, so am I. It's not all right, cool. Now when you go back to your car and you say, you know what, I want to just look up Ethan on Hey Blue. Well, Ethan has had 1,000 hours given back to the community. He's had 5,000 positive connections with officers over the past 2 years. Blah blah blah. You know what? I'm going to cut Ethan a break
Yeah.
because I could see that Ethan wants to be part of this community. And you know what? When I brought that to the Melbourne Police Department and sat down and asked them, does that resonate with you? They're like, absolutely. To know that somebody is sitting there and actually making an effort and being part of the community,
Yeah.
heck yeah, I'd be willing to give them a break.
And if he got pulled over 4 times that week, I better get out of every single one of them.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
so, and then what does that talk about with safety? What does that talk about with all the different issues about being pulled over and the way, like now you're talking about learning the the content of one's character,
Yeah.
right? Which is something that I think is super important to know.
Yep.
So I, I I look forward to when this all comes out and we're able to highlight like all those things. We did a beta test the other day. It was like a couple of weeks ago. You can find it on our, I think on my LinkedIn we posted it. But we had a local defense attorney partner with the Melbourne Police Department. Okay. And if you scroll down, it should be under the posts if you click on all the posts. Um, so it says, it showed how police, like the police department and the defense attorney, sat there and talked to the kids about what to do when you're pulled over. Where is it? Where is it? You got to keep scrolling. Blah, 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 blah. That's it right there. Stop right there. Okay. So what we did is in this particular thing, um, this is about impact supporting our work, right? But in this video that you see on your thing here, we gave away a gift card, and all we asked the kids to do was to interact positively with the police. And whoever had the most positive connections and shared it on social media got a $200 gift card to Nike.
Ooh.
Okay. And
There's your
so
Jordans.
there's your Jordans. And here's this kid right now. I wish you could pull it up and hear him, but he's crying.
Let me give me 1 second here. I can actually.
Community connection. Thank you for posting
Let's
your pics,
see.
for getting to know our Melbourne Police
Share
Department that came
screen.
out to celebrate us. And this is just the first event of many more to come. Yay!
So, hey, what do you think?
I think it's awesome. Thank you, Miss Tammy. Thank you, Hey Blue. It was nice to meet all the police officers over there. And it was nice to meet the lawyer too. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much.
There we go.
And so, like, that event we put together as a design thinking workshop so that we can get the kids' input about Hey Blue. But more importantly, we also did a workshop where the Melbourne Police Department partnered with a defense attorney to talk about what to do when you get pulled over. Okay.
That's awesome.
And it's never happened before, ever. Right. And police department's like, John, you want to do what? Yeah, I want to pair you with a defense attorney because these kids and these families need to hear why it's important and how, like, how do we survive this together? Right? Something so tumultuous or it's being glorified as tumultuous on social media, whatever, of police interactions and stops, for being pulled over and stuff. What is the right thing to do? So here comes the defense attorney and he's like, look, this is what the police officers will ask you to do. This is what they're looking for. And they're asking you for your license, registration, insurance, blah, blah, blah. He said, at the end, if something happens that you don't agree with, these are your recourses: A, B, C, and D. Notice I did not say anywhere for you to fight with anyone at the scene of a car stop.
Yep. That's the courts.
He said, at the end of the day, I want you to survive. If you don't agree with the way you're treated, that's fine. This is what you do. And he sat there and he said to the police commander, I'm going to let them know that that they need your badge number. They need your name. They need any identifying marks, whatever it is. And the police commander said, absolutely. Absolutely. I want my officers to operate with the utmost of integrity and respect for our community. And if somebody feels that they're being untreated, mistreated, absolutely we want to know about it.
Yeah.
If they feel that they were stopped unfairly, we want to know about it. What we don't want is everyone fighting at the scene. What we don't want is me asking you license, registration, and insurance, and you feeling that you don't need to produce that information for whatever reason. Here's a defense attorney telling you you need to produce it because you were asked to produce it by an officer while being pulled over. It's not if you agree or disagree or not. You are being asked to produce it. You need to produce it.
Yeah.
And the kids sat there, and even in that thing, listening to all that and everything that broke down in the way that the Melbourne Police Department and the defense attorney Alton Edmond, and here's a man. Alton Edmond is a man who was a public defender, big time activist, BLM activist supporter, all that. Like, absolutely, he's a man of color. He actually ran for sheriff. He ran against the incumbent for sheriff, who's been here for so many years. And so he is seen by police officers as somebody that's against police officers when he's actually not. We talked about the police perception, all that kind of stuff, right? In the cop culture, they don't want to get past the fact that he ran against the sheriff. And so they don't, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm saying to them, look, come together. Let's give the best information possible and let's move it forward. This is how a police department can share that valuable information that nobody's going to go to your website on, but they'll click on this and see, wait, hold on a second. Since when does a defense attorney and a police department get together and do anything?
Yeah.
And here it is staring you in the face.
Yep.
So to me, that's community policing.
Yep.
To me, right there, pulling community members in, joining forces to get that message out correctly so that everybody can be safe.
Yep. I've had a defense attorney on here, and I've also had a person that's running for DA, that's the Democratic nominee, who's obviously, Texas is a very red state. But you got to have those conversations. You got to get that out there. And it was great because she got on here, and I think she broke down a lot of stigmas that just aren't true. You know, she's like, how many Democrats do you know are for the death penalty? She's like, because I am. I was like, oh shit. She's like, I don't like being put in a fishbowl. She's like, that political affiliation does not define all of my beliefs. I was like, I like that. So
correct.
But we wouldn't know that if we didn't have the conversations and we didn't get together and talk, rather than just do what cops like to do all the time. It's like, Democrat? No, fuck that. You know, and it's a generalization. I get it, folks. It's a generalization, not all. But that's how it is in the police culture. And this is part of the show. I want to give you an insight of the stuff I've seen, the stuff that John's seen in his experience as a cop. That's just how it is. And it takes guys for us on the inside to start breaking those down.
I would like to point out a couple of things. I know we're up against 3 hours. Cops that are doing awesome work in the communities across the United States that I've worked with in Hey Blue. I want to give shout outs to Officer Jeremy Bohannon with the Austin, Texas Police Department. If you guys have a chance to look him up on social media, guy's doing incredible work in building connection in his community. Corporal Brandon Fleming in South Hill, Virginia, also doing incredible work. Here's a man who is nationally recognized for his community policing efforts and how he has literally impacted generations of people. You have Lieutenant Michael Almonte of the NYPD, who has subsequently retired, but he created many mentorship organizations within the NYPD. I would also look into Lieutenant Vincent Veriano of the NYPD, also doing amazing work. He's the guy that is literally giving out money out of his pocket for kids to get Jordans and stuff like that. You have a guy by the name of Deputy Daniel Rivera. He's out of a police department in New Jersey. He does to build connection in his community. He's called Bridges Bookham. He does a lot of rap. He raps and uses music to be able to connect with the community. You have a guy by the name of Dean Jenkins. Dean Jenkins started. He is now a deputy chief in Boston. He was in the Staunton Police Department. And Dean Jenkins actually has a show that's on LinkedIn called #Supply the Why. I would definitely give him a check too. These are all people that are doing incredible things. There are more, but I'm just rambling off the top of my head.
Sounds like you've networked me to have some more podcast interviews.
Oh, absolutely. These are great. These are great people to have on your podcast. And then from there, just different things that you can do as an officer, right? And different strategies and stuff like that, different people to follow on your LinkedIn. There's also Michael Sugrue. I think it's Sugrue.
Yep. I've had him.
Have you? Okay. Yep. He's awesome.
Yep.
Incredible. His story is incredible. You have Michael Simpson as well. Michael Sampson. He's from Boston. You also have Quentin Williams, who is also a defense attorney, but he is working to bridge the gap. Quentin Williams, and he started an organization that, of course, is going to escape me right now.
The Innocence Project, anything like that?
No. It's give me a second and I'll look it up. But what he's doing is incredible as well. He's actually doing a lot of work with the Miami Police Department and the Miami Heat, bringing that together.
Okay.
Um, M.
I
Quentin.
had somebody, I think, from Miami-Dade on the podcast before as well, but I don't think it was that name.
M. Quentin Williams. Yeah, he's really awesome. It's called Dedication to Community, is what he created. So dedication to community, and just an incredible dude. Um, and then yeah, like if you're an officer listening to this, if you're a community member listening to this, like I think it's important for everyone to understand that there are a lot of people that are working on finding solutions. Solutions aren't things that are against the officers. Like I personally just went through an accelerator, the Unbundled Policing Accelerator, and it was created from Solve MIT and Stand Together Venture Labs. And it's basically what solutions can we bring forward to police departments, to police officers to help them, right?
Right.
So one of the organizations is called New, N-E-W, New Blue, okay? And it's out of North Carolina. And it's the gentleman who runs it. His name is Andy Saunders, and a woman by the name of Brittany Nestor. Right. So they were both police officers, and what they do is, if you're a police officer that's in a department and you want to bring change to that department, right? They give $5,000 micro grants to police officers to help support them bring other like these initiatives to their police department. So like, hey Blue, like one of these new blue officers would say, hey, I want to get this leadership training that they offer and stuff like that, and then I want to use my $5,000 to bring, you know, whether it's Hey Blue or any other strategies that they feel would help that police department come along. So I think that's important. They were just featured also through Stand Together, New Blue, as one of the things that they really support. It's really, really a good organization. Then you have another organization out there called Sprocket. And Sprocket is something that they're trying to get into hands of police departments, police officers. So at the moment of arrest, for a low level arrest, it's a deflection tool. So it's an app that instead of you arresting somebody, you would give them all of these tasks that they have to fulfill through an app. And if they don't do it, then they have to deal with whatever the consequences are. So that's called Sprocket, Sprokit. And the gentleman that created his name is Joe Kwong, and he's actually I think he was an illustrator, or he worked for what is it called? Uh, Pixar. He worked for
Oh,
Pixar.
okay.
Yeah, he's super cool, Joe Kwong. And then you have a gentleman like Jason Friesen. He created something called Beacon, which he's trying to get in the hands of police departments, which is like it's a community responder tool, so that police officers don't have to respond to Narcan like overdoses, like
Right.
heroin overdoses, and that it gets Narcan in the hands of community members who can then respond and administer the Narcan at a faster time than police departments can, police
Right.
officers can. So you also have these are all, like I said, these were all in my cohort. These are all solutions that are being beta tested and brought out. You have something called Protected, and that was by Seven Star, and a gentleman who created his name is Dimitri Roberts. Dimitri is a retired police officer from Chicago, and he basically he created a way to make a contactless car stop,
Okay.
so that everything is run basically through your phone. So these, like I said, these are solutions that people are working on. I'm telling you this because I think police officers need to know that there are many people that are donating time, energy, effort away from their families, all this kind of stuff to help. Now, some of it might be far fetched and never Like, no way it will happen. Some of it is by ordinary people. Some of it is by people that have been traumatized by police and they just want to build a fairer, safer experience for everyone. And some people are retired cops like me or actual cops that are working right now. And I think it's important that, hey, we can be accepting of that. A lot of we can support that.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for your monetary support. I'm asking for you to just to say for a second, take a reflection and say, hey, could that actually work? Would I actually use that? Could that actually help me in my day? Could a deflection tool help me? Could me wanting change in my police department, now I know I have somebody to reach out to. Other people that are doing the same thing. And New Blue is growing exponentially. Like they're doing incredible work. Check them out. But these are definitely organizations, and the crazy thing is we were chosen originally one of only 10 were chosen out of 200 companies. So there are a lot of people that they're trying to help. Some of it, okay, I get it. You might not want it. It might be a little uncomfortable or just not up your alley. That's cool. Nobody's created a platform for police officers to run around dancing all the time, right? like that's not. But what I heard and being in the middle of this and being a retired cop is there are a lot of people that they want you to be safe. Please hear that. They want you to be safe. And they want you to help keep everybody safe.
It's a team effort for sure.
It is 100%. Yep. So,
well, all right, brother.
Thank you, man.
I think we had a good podcast here.
I hope so. I hope I brought value to your podcast, man, and I appreciate you.
So when this all gets done, I'll send it to you and you can put it out with your peeps.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for having on and listening to me speak for 3 hours, man.
Hey, man.
my wife would have shot me already.
I love it. I'm surprised the door hasn't been knocked on. Like, you still doing a podcast in there?
And look, man, like that's, building a network is important.
Yep.
So you always let me know how I can help you.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. One step closer.
That's right.